Chapter 450 Bullying the Bullies. The combat class was changed from the combat classroom to the arena where Nightmare was bullied an hour ago. The students made their way to the arena in groups or couples. Only Michael walked alone until Ellider joined him. "Do you have any idea why we are having the class in the arena?" Ellider asked, though he seemed to have guessed Lucifer had something to do with this. "You will see." While they were on their way to the arena, the students looked up at the sky to see flocks of various magical beasts descending towards them. Not all the magical beasts were able to fly, as there were several magical beasts running towards them too. One of the familiars among the familiars in the sky was Nightmare. Due to Wilcast's poor status, he did not have a familiar. Only a few students lacked families when they reached Mazeroth. Even among countless students, Nightmare located Michael and landed on his shoulder. "How was your training, Nightmare?" asked Michael, pretending he didn't see Nightmare earlier. He kept his face straight. "Anything special happen, Nightmare?" he asked Nightmare. Even Ellider, who was several thousand years old, did not notice the cold intent in his eyes. "No," Nightmare lied. For a moment Michael felt extremely annoyed and aggravated by the lie, but when he saw the eyes of Nightmare, he calmed down. He understood why the dragon was lying to him. Nightmare would rather face his own problems than adding them on top of Michael's. Gaia was standing in the center of the arena, sharpening the long sword in her hand. She and Nightmare bickered and fought almost every day, but both of them loved the other dearly. Hence, when Gaia heard about Nightmare being bullied by a bunch of humans, she was royally pissed. If it wasn't for Michael, who convinced her to stay put, she would have kicked the life out of the bullies in the name of punishment. "Line up." Her shout sent chills through their spines. They quickly formed a line. Gaia flicked her wrist as a stack of silver coins materialized beside her. With another flick of her wrist, she sent a coin towards a student and their familiar. The students gawked at the floating coins in front of them with bewildered faces. "What the fuck are you looking at?" "Take them." The students and the familiars grabbed the coins. "At the end of this class, whoever has the most coins will get this." A silver parchment appeared in her hand. A rare level spell. She threw the parchment on the ground. "New novel _chap_ders are published here, Elworld. Calm, that's it." A cocky human student from House Warriors snickered. "You can rob, attack, do whatever you want." "And House Warriors," she looked at the students who were in Warrior House robes, "if you get your asses kicked, don't even bother coming back. Now shoo." She gestured at them to go away, but not before taking a long look at where Michael was looking at the bullies. The students immediately scattered in all directions. Most of them chose the Black Forest as their destination. The Black Forest would provide them with much-needed cover for them to safeguard their coins. Many who were not warriors knew they would be decimated if they went against the warriors or runmasters. Hence, hiding was their only choice. Victoria dashed in the direction of the Black Forest. She wasn't running but chasing her prey. "I thought you don't care about stuff like this," Edith asked while running behind Victoria. "I don't, but I'm not gonna be bested by a bunch of clowns either," she said, targeting a dwarf who was running as though his life was depending on the coin. Boom! The dwarf was extremely unlucky as he was targeted by Victoria. Like a cheetah that pounces on its prey, Victoria leaped at the dwarf. The dwarf barely looked up when he felt a sharp pain on the back of his head. Victoria took the coin off of the dwarf she just knocked down. On her way to the Black Forest, she collected several more coins. Edith might not be fighting like Victoria while running, but once she reached the Black Forest, she was confident that she could trap the students with her runic traps and collect more coins. A forest like the Black Forest was a natural playground for a runmaster like her. She was a 4-star runmaster, and according to her big sister, Layla Alden, she was just a few years training away from reaching a 5-star level. It took the duo 15 minutes to reach the border of the Black Forest. They entered the woods cautiously. Edith touched the trees as she followed behind Victoria. Every time she placed her hand on a tree, a palm-sized chakra appeared on them and disappeared into the tree. Shoo! Suddenly Victoria stopped on her path. "There's someone ahead," and he was getting surrounded by 5. Victoria sent waves of cosmic energy to scan her surroundings. She cautiously moved in the direction of the 6 students. With a swift leap, she landed on a nearby tree branch to get a good view of the scene. Edith bent her hips, drawing a symbol on the ground beneath her feet. Then when she jumped, the symbol glowed, boosting her leap. When she landed beside her friend Victoria, she saw a familiar face standing in the middle of the forest. A crimson-scaled forest dragon was resting atop his shoulder. "That's our train neighbor, full_our current_novel on Elworld. My, what do we have here?" All of a sudden a cocky voice reverberated in the forest. Edith and Victoria turned their gazes away from the alchemist to see 5 students of House Warriors step out of the shadows one by one. They flanked him in all directions. "Hey, look at that, it's our toy," the red wavy-haired youngster pointed the stick in his hand at Nightmare, an alchemist. "This is pathetic," Edith saw a pale-skinned girl lick the tip of her blade. "I think we should let the dragon see its master getting the end of our boots," another youngster coldly said. "How low can they stoop?" Seeing 5 warriors surrounding an alchemist put a frown on Edith's face. "I'm going to help him." Edith took a step forward only to be stopped by Victoria. "That's not our business. If he can't save himself, he should have been at least good at hiding. I can't stay here doing nothing when someone's being bullied in front of my eyes." Edith's whisper turned colder. As expected, just as she was about to jump down, they heard the alchemist calmly speak. Nightmare, who was resting atop Michael's shoulder, began to shiver. He was struck by nervousness. When they began to bully him, he could have simply told either Gaia or Michael and they would have dealt with them. But he restrained himself from doing that to avoid causing them an extra problem, as Nightmare knew they were dealing with enough problems as it is. However, sensing the cold intent in Michael's voice, Nightmare realized that he might know everything. "Bullies stick together, huh?" Michael cracked his knuckles one by one. "If there is a forest," Edith heard him and was surprised by his calmness despite the tricky situation he was in. "Lion, tiger, dragon will prowl to hunt for their prey. The prey will run for its life." Victoria looked him in the eyes and saw no fear, not at all. "But if the sun sets and darkness descended by then, the animal which will survive to watch a new dawn would be decided only by the nature." He rolled up his sleeves gradually as he spoke. "But in this jungle, when the darkness falls, when, where, and who will watch the daybreak won't be decided by nature." Finally, Michael cracked his neck. This time, the murderous intent in his eyes was visible to everyone, including Edith. The aura he radiated rendered the warrior speechless. "It's me." Victoria was surprised at the speed of his dash toward the red-haired youngster. The warrior barely had time to move a muscle when he received a punch that sent him flying onto the tree behind him. For more_novel, visit Elworld. The rest of the warriors were stupefied by his speed. Before they could react, Michael had once again dashed at the red-haired student. He was growling on the ground. Suddenly his growl turned into a scream of agony because Michael mercilessly stomped on the bully's kneecap, shattering it into pieces. While the youngster was screaming, crying, and growling beneath his feet, Michael turned back. The other 4 warriors were dashing at him put a sudden break when they saw his cold gaze landing on them. An unexplainable fear clutched their hearts. They were warriors and they shouldn't have felt afraid in front of an alchemist, but they did feel afraid. He made only a few moves, but they were enough to reveal his battle prowess to Victoria. He didn't seem like a normal alchemist to her. For the first time in her life, she slightly felt curious about a guy. "Arg!" The red-haired youngster screamed yet again as this time, Michael stomped on his other kneecap. Although the student could be healed with a healing potion, the pain he was feeling right now would be ingrained into his brain forever. If he felt an urge to bully again, this pain would kill that urge. "What have you done?" "You." The girls stood closer to Michael, shivering. Their leader was just crushed in a few mere moments. If they could use spells, they would fight fearlessly. Since that was not the case, they all started to tremble and the red-haired youngster's cries didn't give them any courage. Regardless of her gender, Michael picked her as his next target. Plap. Edith closed her eyes the very next second after he slapped the girl with enough force to create a mini shock wave. Unlike the red-haired youngster, she immediately lost consciousness as well as a few teeth. Nightmare supposed that he should feel pity for them, but he felt nothing for these bullies. Michael tilted his head, grinning at the 3 remaining students. "I thought bullying the weak got you off." Victoria was looking at the alchemist beating the crap out of the 3 warriors with mild interest. The trio ganged up on him, still they could not even lay a finger on him. Each of his moves was precise, deadly, and straightforward. Except for the girl, he broke several bones of the others. HRGH, the girl forced open her eyes gradually at the wrong possible time. Arms or legs, you can only pick two, bitch. Nightmare wanted to stop, but looking at the murderous look in his eyes, he knew it was too late to stop him. Full_out new _episode_ on the L World COM platform. He was just a few meters away from the girl when Edith landed right between the girl and Michael. It's enough, Edith stomped the ground. Chapter 451. Gaia is fired. Just like Victoria scanned her surroundings, Michael also performed the scanning. The only difference other than the obvious energy difference was Michael sensed the two girls' presence way before Victoria sensed him. He let them see the one-sided brutality to earn badass points. As he expected, he earned quite a lot of badass points. Since every single one in Mazeroth was either genius or celebrity, his badassery earned tons of badass points. Because of this theory, he didn't think deeply about the two girls' identities. Miss 45. Michael lowered his sleeves down. Something tells me you are not here for my coin. Edith was stunned by the sudden change in his demeanor. A few moments ago, he was coldly breaking the bones of his fellow students, and now, he was smiling warmly. I was foolish to think you needed help. How could you do this? Edith's eyes watered looking around. Their cries and agony softened her already soft heart. Thank you for your kindness, Miss 45. Now if you step aside, I have a bitch to deal with. Michael looked at Nightmare standing atop his shoulder and saw his worried face when he was being bullied. That scene kindled the rage in his heart. If he was outside, he would have killed the 5 by now. The least he could do was break a few bones, and that was letting them off easily. No, Edith stomped the ground again. This time, the ground beneath him trembled as translucent chakras appeared behind her. But the chakras quickly disappeared as soon as they appeared. Human, we have a problem. To his surprise, he heard Gaia's voice in his head. You can't take their coins, but I won't let you harm them any more than you have already. Edith's voice turned colder. I couldn't care less about these coins. Michael took the 2 coins from his pocket before throwing them at Edith's feet. It was him who asked Gaia to assign them this task so he could follow these bullies and teach them a lesson. He had no interest in winning. For their medical expenses, with a snicker, he turned his back on Edith. Before leaving the scene, he looked up at the tree Victoria was standing on. Victoria felt his gaze on her for a second. She was sure that he looked directly at her. She was hiding her presence as well as her body, yet he sensed her through all the foliage, darkness, and the trees. She was surprised by him. This _content is taken from Elworld. Sion quickly. Nightmare jumped down from his shoulder while transforming into his real form. With Michael on his back, Nightmare took off into the sky with a powerful flap of his wings like a bullet from a gun. The arena was just a few minutes flying away from the Black Forest. With Nightmare's speed, they reached it in 2 minutes. As he landed in the arena, he saw several students, as well as a silver horse with 2 feathery wings, protruding out of its back, slacking on the ground. A youngster who looked like the embodiment of the word warrior was talking to Gaia, and by the redness and the stiffness of Gaia's body, it seemed like they were having a heated conversation. To be more precise, Gaia seemed to be having a heated conversation while the youngster looked calm and composed. Elliot Watson. Michael recognized the youngster as the head prefect. When he first came to Mazeroth Castle, he met the head prefect along with 3 other students. He wondered why he was here and what he did to make Gaia's face become as red as a ripe tomato. Soon he noticed a golden parchment in her hand. 2 classes, and you've put the student's life at risk in each class. I heard you the first several times. What made you fucking qualified to tell me how to do my fucking job? Michael joined the group of students staring at the ruckus to hear her shout. She noticed Michael but didn't acknowledge him due to obvious reasons. I'm qualified and have the authority to take back your job. Michael was stunned. You have endangered the lives of the students enough, and the way you've been treating them is not the way a house warrior teacher should. You have a week to vacate the premises. Good day, Miss Nayla Steinmeier. Elliot adjusted his spectacles before jumping back on his horse and flying away. What's happening? Elliot came to his side with a grin. In his hand, He had a pouch, and by the clicking sounds coming from the pouch, Michael could see they were coins. Class dismissed as well as the professor. Few elves chuckled among the group. Not only the elves but also the students of other races too looked happy and wore bright smiles on their faces. The alchemists were the ones who seemed most relieved. Ex-professor, the elves continued to laugh among themselves. Gaia left the arena before she lost her patience and broke the faces of those who were laughing. Try the L world. COM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Back in Michael's room, a 7-foot mirror had erupted. In front of the mirror stood Ellider, Michael, and Nightmare. So these spiders capture the feed in real time and project it through mirrors? Ellider was curiously staring at the spider on his palm. I can enhance them by increasing their speed, durability, and prevent them from getting detected by some of the powerful arrays. Although they were made of junk metal, there are some arrays that could still detect their presence. Is this thing working? Gaia appeared in the mirror while Ellider was fiddling with the spider. She was poking the spider, and seeing her face up close put a smile on Michael's face. It was funny. She was currently standing in a cozy room with a fireplace and comfy sofa. There were several portraits of the founders of Mazorth hanging on the wall behind her. The room, however, was a mess, and he noticed the broken table lying in pieces. Yes, I can see you. Now if you step back, you will be able to see us too. Michael talked to the spider floating in the air in front of him. Since meeting Gaia in person would raise unwanted suspicions, he used the spiders as web cameras and initiated a video call using the devices he built. Tell me, what happened? Asked Michael. Didn't you see? I was fired. That son of a bitch evoked some idiotic rule to fire me out of my job. We are less than 16 away from starting the ritual and I have already lost my job. What are we gonna do about it? I do vaguely remember something about in the event of a professor abusing his or her power to endanger the lives of their students, a secret vote can be held by the head prefect, and if the vote passed against the professor, they will be stripped of their job. But to evoke the rule, take the vote and fire you from your post within 2 days is quite a feat. Dark Queen, Gaia rolled her eyes seeing Ellider praising Elliot. We will proceed as we planned. It's too late to back off now. After we make my soul whole again, we may not even have to be here. Ellider, you sure you can modify the teleportation scroll to teleport us out of here? Already finished it. Just say the word and the 4 of us will be out of here before one could say cheese. Michael wanted to say he was surprised, but he expected this from a 6-star runemaster who was several thousand years old. He had the knowledge and skills to open the gates to Earth, and for a runemaster with his caliber, it would be simple enough to modify a teleportation scroll. The girl, will she be there? Our whole plan depends on her showing up to battle the fire giant, Gaia asked. She didn't give a damn about being a professor. The only thing she cared about was the ritual that was supposed to happen tomorrow. No matter what happens, they have to go through with the ritual. The sooner his soul becomes whole, the better. Gaia knew this. The ritual was extremely important, and that was why she was royally pissed at Elliot for getting herself fired. Full _ new _ episode _ on the L world. COM platform. Don't worry. She will come. After discussing their plan for a few more minutes, Michael cut the call. He then took out a muddy brown potion from the system's storage. Nightmare, he called Nightmare as the little dragon came flying to him. Take this. He handed over the potion to Nightmare. It's your task to spray this potion in the air and lure the fire giant to the ritual site. They picked up a secluded site in the middle of the Black Forest as their ritual site. It was far from the Mazorth castle, yet relatively closer to the fire giant. According to Ellider, the ritual might last from 1 hour to 3 hours. The first step of the ritual was to extract the soul piece that Michael named as the third persona. The second step was to cage the soul into the fire giant's body, thus giving the soul piece a physical manifestation. Then the third and most difficult step of the ritual was letting Rowena defeat the fire giant but not kill it. She had to weaken the giant so Michael could absorb the soul back at its weakest state. In its weakest state, it would be merged with the other 2 soul pieces, and if everything went according to their plan, his soul would be whole once again. As they were finalizing their plan for tomorrow, Gaia's doors were knocked on by an unexpected guest. Gaia was irritated by the fact she got fired, and moreover, the guy who was responsible for it was stronger than her. It was embarrassing for her. After diligent cultivation, she just reached core strengthening stage level 4. However, Elliot was at soul refining stage level 2. Only if I went through my metamorphosis. Damn it, knock. 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 Her train of thought was interrupted by a knock on her door. She cast a quick spell to spread her senses. When she sensed the one who was knocking on her door, she was surprised. It was an extremely powerful presence, a presence of a fusion stage cultivator. New novel _chap_ters are published here, Elworld. She was surprised and startled more than she was annoyed. With utter caution, she slowly approached the door. When she opened the door, a man clothed in dark robes resembling an overgrown bat stood at her doorstep. Professor Lane? Chapter 452 The ritual has begun. Professor Lane entered Gaia's room without bothering to ask her permission. He gawked at the mess in the room but didn't seem like he gave a damn. Yeah, come in. Gaia rolled her eyes. How do you like your job back, Miss Steinmeier? Professor Lane asked in his waspish voice. Huh? Gaia was confused. I have a task for someone with your caliber, Miss Steinmeier. Accomplish this and you will be Professor Steinmeier. Before Gaia could say anything, she had a feeling that she should hear him more. After all, she needed to pretend as she cares about this job to avoid raising suspicions. She was really lucky whatever spell was cast on her when she took the identification card of the real imposter of Professor Steinmeier was powerful enough to fool even the fusion stage cultivators such as Lane. Otherwise, she would have probably ended up in the deepest dungeons of Mazeroth. I have a week to get out of here, Professor Lane. So whatever's in your mind if you depart now, you can finish it before tomorrow night. He stared at Gaia wordlessly, asking for her answer. What's the job? Gaia asked, sighing. Escorting a student in and out of a dungeon? Gaia's curiosity was slightly piqued because dungeons are rare, but every dungeon would contain a priceless artifact or a relic worth risking their lives. If a dungeon was found, it would cause a ruckus among cultivators. Soon, the dungeon would be filled with adventurers, rogue cultivators, sects to loot everything inside. Anything that could be found in a dungeon would be extremely valuable. However, as much as the dungeons contained valuables, they also contained danger in every corner. If 100 people entered the dungeon, only a few would come outside fully intact. The task seems extremely dangerous, Professor Lane, especially for the student. If you tell me more about the dungeon and what it contains, I might take the task. After all, I want all the information I need before risking my life. Being alive is more important than being a professor. Fair enough, Professor Lane nodded. He almost looked like he was expecting everything Gaia just said. For more _novel, visit Elworld. Calm, primordial fire, a single word that came from Lane's mouth was enough to make her shudder. The last time she witnessed the power of a primordial 4 was when she was in the fire realm. Noah used heaven's flame to save the old man from House Fisher. The flame was powerful enough to obliterate even the extremely powerful poison miasma in the fire realm. According to the texts she read in the Nagaland library, the primordial flames would grow stronger with time and enhance the spells and skills one possessed. She also heard from Michael that he needs a primordial flame to reach the 6-star alchemist. That's what's inside the dungeon along with skeleton soldiers. Wait a minute. If that's what's all in the dungeon, why didn't anyone get it? So what's the catch? Gaia was not dumb enough to believe that there was primordial fire sitting in a dungeon, but no one in the Akulon realm had taken steps to get the fire for themselves. The dungeon is protected by a void array. Even a half-immortal would be rendered powerless the moment he or she steps into the dungeon. Which means, only a battle-hardened warrior can get in and out alive. Something tells me countless battle-hardened warriors had already tried that and didn't live to tell the tale. Gaia emphasized the word battle-hardened, crossing her arms. Lane was annoyed by all the questions, but he never showed his emotions on his face. After all, he needed her to do his bidding. With a flick of his wrist, Lane conjured a purple flame above his palm. Unlike the normal flames, primordial flames have a mind of their own. If the primordial flames deemed you unworthy when you try to absorb them, you will be reduced to nothing but ashes. He threw the purple fire onto the broken table behind him. In mere moments, the oak table turned into ashes as he said. Gaia was surprised by his theatrics as he had no need to turn the table into ashes. I assume you want to know who is the student you have to accompany. Gaia nodded in curiosity. She derived a bunch of plans to get rid of the student and sneak Michael into the dungeon instead. The student has the ID 66. Weirdly he chose to go by the name Ghost, and where he came from. Gaia received yet another shock from Professor Lane. He is an alchemy student, probably a prodigy. He may have a chance to absorb the primordial flame without being obliterated by it. She sensed no remorse or nothing at all in his voice. What if he was deemed not unworthy by the flames, which she didn't believe would be the case? If anyone was worthy of the primordial flames, it was him. I can get him in, and if he survived the flames, I can get him outside. New novel _chap_ters are published here, Elworld. Great. Use this when you are within 3 feet of him. You will be teleported directly into the dungeon's entryway. He will have no choice but to see it till the end. He talked while walking towards the door to leave the room. Just before stepping out of the room, he handed over a golden teleportation scroll to Gaia. He did not even bother to ask if she was going to agree or not, as he knew she had no choice. What if that head prefect asshole tried to get me fired again? Next time, not every professor will sign the petition. By the time his voice reached her ears, he already vanished into thin air. Then she realized that if what he said was true, all the professors signed the petition, including him. This meant he manipulated the entire scenario just to get her to agree to the task. She even doubted he may have been the person who initiated the plan to get her fired in the first place. However, instead of punching something to vent her anger, she burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. Professor Lane may have felt like the mastermind, but only she knew who was the real winner in the situation: Michael. Lady Luck was on his side, that Gaia knew for sure. The only thing that bugged her was in less than a day, they had the ritual to put his soul back together. Although they were talking about the ritual and how to perform it, they had no idea how it was going to go. To be honest, she was worried sick, but she didn't let Michael see her anxiety. In the Serenade of the Black, the stars were a choir. They were lights that sing in infinite patterns. Sometimes eyes needed music, and the darker the night the sweeter the song. Amid the starlight was the ever-glow of the moon, that mother of the sky who watched over every beating heart, steady and true. Despite her angelic moonlight that bathed the planet with sapphire light, the black forest remained dark. The thousands of years old trees shaded the ground with their ever-expanding canopy, preventing any light from cutting through them. Nothing was audible except for the sound of snoring in the distance. In the middle of a large glowing chakra stood Michael, Gaia, and Elidar. "The fire giant is still sleeping, I guess," said Elidar. "When should we do this?" Nightmare flew back to Michael after surveying the surroundings. "I just need your blood." Michael walked towards Elidar and took out a dagger from the system storage. The next moment, he cut open his palm as blood gushed out, dripping onto the glowing chakra. When the blood touched the chakra, the glowing blue chakra turned crimson red. "Step to the center and the ritual will begin." Elidar's voice turned serious. The usual calmness in his voice was nowhere to be found. Gaia was slightly shaking seeing Michael taking steps towards the center of the chakra. "Nightmare now. Lure the fire giant here," Elidar ordered Nightmare. The dragon quickly nodded his head before flying in the direction of the fire giant as fast as he could. Full_out current_novel on Elworld. Gaia threw the bait potion into the air, which was caught by Nightmare in midair. Boom! When he flapped his wing, it produced a quiet booming sound. She had never seen Nightmare fly so fast. Everyone was nervous, including Elidar, despite his calm demeanor. "Please come back to me in one piece, human," she whispered to him. She prayed to her mother with her hands against the chest. Regardless of the situation, when he warmly smiled at her, she calmed down. Jrrrr. All of a sudden a thunderous roar echoed through the forest, almost breaking their eardrums. The shout was soon followed by thunderous footsteps. The ground beneath them shook. Manual soul extraction is initiated. Arch energy flow has been stopped. prepare to go through an extreme amount of pain. System offline in 3, 2, 1, ARGH. Michael's outcry in pain sent a chill through Gaia's spine. She dashed towards him in instinct to save him, only to be stopped by Elidor. The ritual must not stop. Elidor and Gaia saw the blood gushing out of Michael's nostrils and mouth as he collapsed onto his knees. He howled at the sky like a wolf in pain. His soul was literally being stripped out of him. The pain he suffered could not be described in mere words. Everything in his being hurt. His head hurt, his chest hurt, his feet hurt, and every single fiber in his body screamed in agony. The pain subsided at times, only to flare up several times more intense than before. He held his head tightly, trying to fight through the pain. It was difficult to focus between the moments of pain and the voices telling him to stop what he was doing, but he pressed onward. But he felt sore all over. The ritual was taking its toll on his entire body more than he initially expected. However, his anger and pain in his heart offered him the strength to bear the pain. His mind and body told him to give up, but the anger of being abandoned and caged for something he never even did fueled his willpower to get through the ritual. Gaia's worried look took a turn to worse when she witnessed a smoky figure emerge from Michael. It was appearing and disappearing from his body as though it didn't want to leave his body. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published _here at Elworld. The figure was screaming, but she never heard the screams. The broken piece of the soul, Elidor explained in utter shock. As a scholar specializing in souls, this was the first time he had seen such a phenomenon. Witnessing the power being radiated by the soul piece truly frightened him. Chapter 453. The possessed fire giant. Even when his pain was killing him from within, Michael's brain still functioned, telling him not to scream no matter what. If he were to scream before the fire giant reached the ritual ground, it would prematurely attract the girl, or worse, a professor. Jrrrr. The fire giant's scream sounded closer and closer. He could feel the ground beneath him tremble violently. How long does he have to go through this? He could vaguely hear Gaia's outcry, "Run!" Nightmare shout sounded in his mind. With great difficulty, he looked up. His vision was not as clear as it used to be a few moments ago. The X-ray vision, the arch energy, and the strength he possessed were nowhere to be found. It made sense as the system informed him that his arch energy flow had been interrupted. He was in a most vulnerable position. If anyone chose to attack him, he would be defenseless. Even a foundation stage cultivator with a dagger could end his life, let alone a fire giant of soul refining stage level 8. The girl who slew the mountain troll was at fusion stage level 2. If his guess was correct, the fire giant would reach the fusion stage after merging with the third piece of the soul. Jrrrr. He felt a scorching hot smoke brush past him. The splitters came flying from the broken trees, causing several cuts on his face. His blood slowly painted his face red. What stood before him was a fire giant standing over 5 meters tall. It was a thick-limbed humanoid with deep crimson-red skin. Its eyes were sunken into their sockets, glimmering in golden yellow. The giant's hair resembled fire, disorderly with streaks of orange and yellow, whereas its claws and teeth resembled fire-blackened steel. Despite their physical form, fire giants possessed the intellect of a human. Hence, when it saw glowing crimson-red chakra, the giant realized that it stepped into a trap. However, instead of backing off, it charged forth, targeting Michael. "Now release!" Elidor shouted the moment the giant stepped into the chakra. The shout was directed at Michael, and he knew it. Argh! His scream was ear-piercing. The sound-absorbing array Elidor absorbed the scream and prevented anyone from the castle from hearing it. The human part of his scream quickly turned demonic. "No!" A demonic voice shouted within him. It rendered everyone, including the fire giant, stunned. Powerful sound waves shot out of Michael and pushed everyone around him several steps backward. Elidor was dazed by the power. Something little such as a shout contained enough force to crush a body-refining stage cultivator. He could not even fathom the power he would possess after reaching his full potential. Steady herself, she saw an ethereal figure resembling Michael's Lucifer form arising from within. This underscore content is taken from Elworld. Get. Michael grabbed his head as blood started to seep through his eyes. For the first time, he saw the third persona manifest. A ghostly chain was still connecting the both of them. Michael grabbed the chain as his lips curved upwards. Out! He crushed the chain, finally releasing the third persona out. Now! Michael vaguely heard another shout from Elidor. But this time, it was directed towards Gaia. The longbow and arrow materialized in her hand and both of them glowed brighter and brighter, radiating immense power. A web of tiny symbols could be seen on her bow and the arrow. The runes Elidor placed on the arrow would boost the arrow's power. Although the arrow wouldn't be able to kill the fire giant, the arrow would temporarily weaken it. In the weak state, the third piece of the soul would be sent into the fire giant's body relatively easily. Otherwise, the fire giant's body would explode due to the power of the soul. You imbecile! Gaia saw the ethereal figure scream at Michael, trying to reach him, whereas the glowing chakra began to rotate faster and faster. Boom! The arrow fired from Gaia's bow broke the sound barrier. In a blink of an eye, the arrow went straight through the fire giant's chest. Jrrrr! The fire giant's shout sounded quieter than they expected. From the wound caused by the arrow, a bubble of blood dropped onto the chakra. The next moment, a powerful gust of wind knocked down all the trees in the 5-meter radius. It didn't stop with a gust of wind, but the rotating chakra created a mini typhoon. Every tree, splinters, log, and object in the vicinity got pulled into the typhoon. Nightmare felt the pull, but he managed to fly to Gaia using all of his strength. Gaia, on the other hand, held onto a tree with all her might. Elidor managed to stand still without being pulled by the typhoon using a rune. No! The third persona screamed again. Little by little, it got pulled towards the fire giant. Michael's vision gradually blurred until he saw nothing but darkness. Try the Elworld. Com platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Human. Gaia shouted when she saw Michael collapse onto the ground. On the other hand, the fire demon's golden eyes turned pitch black. Away. Elidor raised his hand at the fire giant. A golden chakra shot out of Elidor's hand and flew towards the fire giant. When the fire giant and the golden chakra clashed, a bright beam of golden light exploded. Their eyes were made to close by the brightness. When they opened their eyes, the fire giant along with the crimson-red chakra on the ground and the typhoon disappeared. Gaia finally fell to the ground. The moment she hit the ground, she rushed towards Michael. She slid through the mud and splinters to reach him. She picked up his head and put it on her lap. Nightmare landed beside him with his 2 eyes welled up with tears. He's not breathing. Gaia shook his body. Ghosty. Nightmare scratched his arms with his mouth. Now it all depends on the girl. Elidor sighed, looking at the distant horizon. Somewhere else in the Akilan realm, a giant palace was floating above the clouds. The palace was basking in the light of the full moon. This was the residency of the Holy Maiden, the Ice Palace. As the name indicates, the palace was made of nothing but pure ice. Only the Holy Maiden could inhabit such a harsh environment. In the center of the palace, where the snowy mist was covering as far as an eye could see, Rowena was meditating. Her eyes opened abruptly as they twinkled like sapphires. Fire giant, she mumbled. In a few moments, another figure came running to Rowena. Holy Maiden, a fire giant has appeared in the Black Forest, Bai Ning exclaimed. Rowena already stood up, the icy swords attached to chains materialized in her hands. There was no door in the palace. She just walked towards a wall, but the wall split open as she approached. Holy Maiden, we need a plan of attack. Bai Ning tried to stop Rowena from blindly rushing into a battle. At first, when Bai Ning sensed the fire giant, its power was over the roof. The fire giant was unusually powerful, and that was what made Bai Ning worried. I have a plan. Attack. Rowena shot out through the hole, breaking the sound barrier. Visit to Elworld. Discover _ new novels. Her figure disappeared into the clouds while Bai Ning followed her behind. The old woman could barely keep up with the Holy Maiden. Order Mazeroth to stay away from the fire giant. It was the last thing Bai Ning heard before Rowena's figure completely disappeared from her sight. Rowena was flying like a bullet towards the black forest. She spread her senses to locate the fire giant, and it only took a second to pinpoint its location. The fire giant was wreaking havoc in the black forest. It was destroying every tree and everything in its path. Rowena increased her speed. She had sensed the unusual power radiating from the fire giant, yet it didn't stop her. The arch energy radiated from the fire giant was fluctuating. One time, it was at fusion stage level 2, and another time, it was at soul refining stage level 10. She was slightly stunned in mid-air when the fire giant directed its gaze at her and talked like a human. The fire giant, now possessed by Michael's broken piece of the soul, threw its fist at Rowena. Covering her fist with chilling ice, she met the fire giant's fist with her fist. Boom! The moment their fists collided, it produced a powerful shockwave that decimated everything in a 20-meter radius. The ancient trees exploded into million pieces. Rowena landed on the ground comfortably while the fire giant stumped back several steps. Rowena cracked her knuckles. The fire growled angrily before steadying itself. There was at least 10 meters distance between them. For a few seconds, neither of them made a single move as they just stared at each other. Regardless of her puny form, the fire giant did not dare to underestimate her. After all, the soul piece posing the fire giant was part of Michael and inherited his intellect. Therefore, instead of rushing into the battle like Big Dumb, it looked around, planning in its mind. In Rowena's mind, she had gone through hundreds of scenarios of their battle. Although she won the battle in many of the scenarios, she still didn't underestimate the fire giant because of 2 reasons. First, she had no clear idea about the fire giant's abilities. Of course, she studied about the fire giant, but something told her that this fire giant was different from the ones she read about. The second reason, the energy being radiated from the fire giant wasn't purely arch energy, it was something much more powerful. Try the L-World. Com platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. After several moments of staring at each other, they finally started to run toward each other. From the distance, Victoria and Edith were looking at the fire giant along with all the other students. Every single one was woken up by the sound and came to the balcony to witness the battle. Unfortunately, they could only see the head of the fire giant but not Rowena due to the physical forms. "Let's dance!" With a battle cry, Rowena jumped into the air, raising her fist. Chapter 454. The cold flames. A trail of icy mist could be seen appearing around Rowena. On the opposite, the fire giant left a trail of blazing fire. It was not only the fight between Rowena and the fire giant but also the battle of ice and fire. The frost blades disappeared from her hand as she threw her fist to meet the fire giant's fist. Boom! The shockwave shot out from the collision of their fist, destroyed everything around them. The fire giant was pushed back several feet, but Rowena remained still. She cracked her knuckles and then her neck, just like Michael. "Something is controlling the fire giant," Rowena mumbled. The oversize of the fire giant put the third persona at a disadvantage. To harm Rowena, it needed to land a hit on her, but before the giant could raise his fist, she could hit the giant several times. Therefore, the third persona changed the battle tactic. Just like before, the fire giant moved toward Rowena, seeming not to have any battle plan. Rowena remained still, waiting for the fire giant to punch her. However, when she was waiting for the fist, a beam of light shot out of its eye. Rowena was caught off guard by the sudden beam of fire. It was so quick, lightning quick. Many students watching the giant from the castle didn't even see the beam of fire. They only witnessed a sudden flash of light. The fire giant stared at the cloud of smoke and the crater created by the beam of fire. The scorching hot beam turned everything into ashes. Gradually, the mist cleared. The fire giant was stunned as it could see Rowena's figure in the mist. The blue robes she wore were burnt to a crisp by the flame despite the protection runes placed on them. This time, pure frosty ice materialized on her body, forming an armor. The prophecy, standing in her office, Kayla was witnessing the fight through the window. We have entered the age of darkness, she recalled the words Wulfric spoke a couple of months ago. Headmistress Gilrine entered the room. I placed the talismans you gave me around the forest, Kayla sighed. Make sure no one ventures into the Black Forest. From now on, the Black Forest is forbidden for everyone including the staff, she said without moving her eyes from the fire giant. Visit Elworld. Com for a better reading experience. Headmistress Gilrine had a bewildered look on his face. He scratched the back of his head. You can spit out what's in your mind, Gilrine. Why aren't we deploying our forces to Black Forest, Headmistress? Our forces can subdue the fire giant without destroying the forest. The forces in play are beyond the mortals, Gilrine. Our forces are nothing before them. Gilrine nodded without uttering any word. He trusted the headmaster and headmistress with his life. Whatever decision they made, he knew it would be the best. Frost storm. On the battlefield, Rowena raised her hand, casting a chantless spell. The Black Forest became darker as the storm clouds blanketed the moon and her dazzling light. The students gasped in shock. Storm was an understatement. The howling wind and the size of the tornado arose, connecting the ground and the sky, frightened every single one. Even Victoria was stunned by the sight of the storm in the Black Forest. The tornado swirled towards the fire giant. The fire giant breathed fire into the icy tornado. The dance between ice and fire created a phenomenon no one had ever seen. Kayala, who knew the storm was created by the Holy Maiden, felt a chill. She knew this spell could destroy an entire city within a few minutes. Even a spell like that caliber couldn't kill the fire giant. Rowena shot into the tornado, and the moment she reached the tornado swirled faster and faster, and the power of the first storm multiplied by several folds. She pushed away the fire coming from the giant's mouth. Little by little, the frost storm moved towards the fire giant through the stream of fire. Arctic arrows. She shouted in her mind as hundreds of 6-foot arrows shot out from the tornado like bullets. The fire giant raised its hand to defend its eyes from the arrows. Step by step the fire giant moved back. The fire giant screamed, but the scream was not of pain, it was a shout of anger. Try the Elworld. Com platform for the most advanced reading experience. Boom. All of a sudden, the fire giant punched the tornado. Rowena's body was thrown into the swirling force. Before she could steady herself, the fire giant embraced the tornado. The fire giant tightened the embrace as the tornado began to form cracks. Annoying bug, Rowena heard the fire giant speak to her in a demonic voice. Slowly the tornado turned darker and darker. The white frost took a turn to the opposite and transformed to pitch black. Rowena raised her hand, trying to move the tornado forward while dispelling the dark energy invading her spell. Her nose bled as her skin became pale as a paper. Holy Maiden, Bai Ning, who was witnessing the battle from a secluded room in Mazeroth, murmured under her breath. She could see the dark energy weakening Holy Maiden's energy. It felt as though the fire giant was drawing the blackness around it to get stronger. She could vaguely see unknown dark energy being absorbed by the fire giant from the sky itself. Rowena stopped powering the tornado. Within a few moments, the stormy clouds perished from the night sky. Yet again the full moon showered the ground with her light. Unexpectedly, when the light was shone on the fire giant, it grew weaker. Rowena noticed this by seeing the flicking eyes of the fire giant. When the tornado evaporated, the giant lost its balance. It stumbled forward only to receive a giant fist made of ice to its face. The icy mist enveloped the area, and when Rowena emerged from the icy mist, her eyes were glowing. The students were able to see Rowena now as she was floating, and her figure was growing in size rapidly. The armor covering her body enlarged. In a few minutes, she was in the center of a giant made of ice. Thus, the battle between a human and a fire giant turned into a battle between two giants. Only a few minutes passed when the ice giant grew to the size of the fire giant. Ice mirrors. Rowena noticed the fire giant's weakness to light. So she cast a spell that formed hundreds of mirrors made of ice around them. All the mirrors appeared in the angel to reflect and focus the moonlight onto the fire giant. Even in the face of hundreds of mirrors shedding light onto it, the fire giant stood still. The third piece of the soul was the soul piece of the Dark Lord after all. The fire giant began to smash the mirrors in the sky. The power of the moonlight was the reason Elidor chose this particular day. On any other day, defeating the fire giant would have been near impossible. The fire giant violently smashed the mirrors faster than Rowena created them. Looking at the fire giant getting close to her, she yet again raised her hands towards the sky. Then, she called for the most powerful weapon in her arsenal. _@Elworld. I call forth thy coldest flames in the universe. A gush of frosty wind immediately surrounded Rowena's body. An invisible force pushed the fire giant and put out the flames around them. Then, a layer of frost layered everything within a mile radius. From the sky itself, a stream of blue flames flew to Rowena, taking the shape of a winged woman. Primordial flame. Victoria immediately recognized the phenomenon as the primordial flames, while the other students were gawking at the sky startled. The cold flames, Edith mumbled. For the first time, the fire giant's pitch-black eyes flickered and Rowena sensed an aura of distress from whatever possessed the fire giant. Victoria never believed the primordial flames possessed a mind of their own, but when she saw the flames escaping from her and now it had chosen an extremely powerful cultivator as its master, she believed the tests were true. She thought having cosmic energy would let her absorb the primordial flames. Destroyer. Directly above the fire giant, a giant sword that was triple the size of the fire giant materialized. The frost-covered sword hung above the fire giant as the primordial flames coiled around the sword like a dragon. The sword gradually grew in size to the point it made the fire giant look puny as an ant. Shit, the fire giant mumbled as the sword descended on itself. Boom! When the sword landed on the ground, it created a mushroom cloud as though a nuke went off. The shock wave shook even the castle as many students were thrown off balance. Rowena lost all her strength. Hence, she fell from the sky. She slowly lost consciousness. The battle took everything in her, and before she closed her eyes, she saw a golden light flash across her eyes. Bai Ning teleported to where the battle was happening. She caught the holy maiden in the mid-air before she hit the ground. A deep dark line formed on Bai Ning's forehead as she saw no signs of the fire giant. She spread her senses to locate the giant but found no living beings in the near vicinity. The vital signs in Rowena's body started to diminish, so Bai Ning didn't dare to linger around or go search for the remains of the fire giant. Her first priority was to make sure Rowena was alive and well. After the battle between Rowena and the fire giant concluded, the desolate mountain where Elidor was imprisoned received guests again. Keep him still. _@Elworld. Michael's body was violently trembling. Gaia's clothes were drenched in the blood gushing out of Michael's mouth, ears, nose, and eyes. The fire giant was lying beside him badly mutilated. Its hands and lower half were missing. They were evaporated by the cold flames. Elidor was quick enough to save the fire giant before the cold flames destroyed the soul piece. He never expected Rowena to possess a primordial flame. Each piece of the soul was connected. Because the cold flames damaged one piece of the soul, the others residing within Michael began to respond to it. One piece couldn't survive without the other. Therefore, the other soul pieces tried to leave his body. In simple words, he was dying, and he would die unless Elidor put his soul back together again. Chapter 455. Michael, Lucifer and Aubra's. Michael was dozing in a place where golden reeds expanded as far as one could see. A golden ray of light shone down, piercing through his eyelids. His eyes as well as the tip of his index finger slightly moved. He couldn't open his eyes with ease as it felt as though his eyelids were glued together. Little by little, his consciousness returned to him. The darkness before him slowly shifted towards a golden light. Everything that happened before he lost consciousness returned to him. The last thing he remembered was the face of Gaia. The memories abruptly awakened him. Suddenly the breath of life returned to him as he sat up. As far as he could see, there was nothing but golden reeds. Is this heaven? He thought in his mind while getting back to his feet. He tried to summon the system, except there was no sign of the system within him. "I wish," a kind voice sounded from behind. Michael turned back in a flash to see a black-robed youngster who wore a gentle smile on his face. Abraz, the one standing in front of him, was none other than Abraz. Michael and Abraz looked alike, except Michael's current self was more mature, tall, and muscular. "Michael," Abraz smiled, "beautiful, isn't it?" Abraz looked around the golden reeds. "What's happening?" Michael stepped towards Abraz and joined him in the sightseeing. Countless questions wreaking havoc in his mind. Where am I? What is this place? How am I seeing Abraz? Why does this feel so real? Is this a dream? Am I dead? These were some of the questions he asked himself. Are you confused, Michael? When I learned we are the same person, I was confused too, Abraz spoke in a calm manner, but I made peace with you. We became one, and we were one until you chose to become the Dark Lord. We didn't make that choice, it was made for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, would we? Visit Elworld. Com for a better reading experience. It was extremely difficult for Michael to accept that Abraz and he were the same person. It didn't feel that way. Until you make peace, we will remain as pieces, Abraz said as he read Michael's thoughts. Peace? Peace with what? Asked Michael. He turned his head to see Abraz still looking at the ocean of golden reeds in front of them. You and I are the same. The moment these words escaped Abraz's mouth, the golden scenery lost all of its lusters. Everything became dark and gloomy. Following the change in the scary, the familiar demonic voice echoed through the golden reed fields. Fool. They both turned back to see Lucifer, in his complete form, enveloped in a shroud of dark smoke and crimson-red eyes emerging from the ground beneath. Unlike Michael and Abraz, Lucifer stood almost towering 8 feet tall. Lucifer, the last piece of our soul, Abraz introduced Lucifer to Michael as though Michael did not know him. Finally we meet face to face, Michael. Lucifer's eyes flared up in red flames. I am confused as fuck. We are supposed to be the same person, yet it feels nothing like that, Michael sighed as he tried to make sense of this situation. System, Michael called out the system in his mind. Don't bother, the system cannot help you. It's probably sick of you two losers, Lucifer growled. We received such a powerful weapon and yet, we are still getting our ass handed over to us by puny humans. You are unworthy of such power. Lucifer completely ignored Abraz and vented his anger at Michael. He then dashed at Michael and punched him. Arg. The punch landed on Michael because Lucifer was too fast. However, when he punched Michael, he shouted, and so did Michael and Abraz. We are the same, Abraz groaned. The punch pushed the 3 of them in a separate direction. When each stood up, they noticed they were standing in a triangle. Your focus on mortal pleasures and inability to get stronger has brought this upon us. Lucifer clenched his fist as the surroundings became darker and darker. Instead of putting all the blame on me, why don't you take charge? After all, we are the same, right? Why are you talking to me like I'm the one controlling the both of you? New_chap_ters or pub_list on Elworld. Because when our soul was shattered, the largest piece of the soul went to Earth. You, Abraz sighed as he began to explain. That's why you always remain in control, and I feel like a different person to you. It should have been me. Yet again Lucifer growled. Makes sense. Finally something made sense to Michael. In his mind, he simplified Abraz's explanation. In mathematical terms, he was 50% of the soul while Abraz and Lucifer were only 25% each. Thus, he remained in control of the body as well as the other pieces of the soul. I was on Earth. You, Michael looked at Abraz. You were in the sanctuary. Then he turned to look at Lucifer. But where were you? Within both of you fools, experiencing both your pathetic lives. Do you know how it feels to be caged and do nothing? When both of you died, I thought I would be finally free, but no, I got caged again. This time, I will end both of you and take the system for myself. With that ultimate power, I can conquer this world and everything in this universe, and then what? Abraz asked. You will bring nothing but death and chaos to the world. Michael doesn't listen to him. We don't have to walk the path he would choose. We have everything a man needs to be happy, a job, a woman who loves us dearly, and people who would shed tears for us. It's enough. You are pathetic. A woman betrayed you and put a dagger through your heart. A job and a woman, humph. We are born to be a god, and gods must bring their wrath upon the mortals to get their loyalty and undying devotion. Give me the system and the control of your being to me. It's time the system had a worthy user. Michael was stuck between Lucifer and Abras. If Abras was one extreme, Lucifer was another extreme. Lucifer hated him and wanted to go on a killing spree with the help of the system, while Abras wanted to settle down and live a peaceful life. Both of their wishes were unrealistic. You wasted the system's potential. We were supposed to be the overpowered god walking among mortals. But you chose to indulge yourself in mere mortal pleasures, care for humans and recruit weaklings as your subordinates. Gods don't need subordinates, gods don't need plans, gods don't need alliances, we only need power, and you are too weak to get stronger. Lucifer walked towards Michael step by step. Our old enemies are getting stronger by the day. New powerful enemies are emerging from the darkest corners. You being cautious, making alliances, and living a fake life as ghost will only let us get killed. Surrender yourselves to me. No, Abras stepped forward. If you listen to him, he will turn us into everything and prove the Sky Hall and the Guardians are right. Leave everything behind you, Michael. We can live peacefully in a corner of this world. The system can hide us. We can be normal. For the first time in our lives, we can have a family. This imbecile. Lucifer lunged at Abras, and before either of them could react, Lucifer punched Abras in the chest. Yet again the trio was sent flying like kites in the storm. Michael felt an excruciating pain in his chest, but no blood came out of him. We are not killers and bringer of darkness, Michael, Abras groaned as he picked himself to his feet. We are not a weakling and a beta like him, Lucifer shouted from the other side. Stuck between the both of them, Michael just closed his eyes. The words they spoke to him flashed across his mind once again. When he opened his eyes, the darkness disappeared as the golden luster came back to the scenery. New_chap_ters or pub_lished on Elworld. You are both right and wrong. Michael let out a deep breath. Lucifer, you are right when you said him not using the system to its full potential. You are right when you said living a fake life as ghost will only get us killed. The dark cloud shrouding Lucifer slowly started to fade away as he was making peace with the Lucifer soul peace. But you are wrong about needing no subordinates, no alliances, and mortal pleasures. You yourself said we have new enemies appearing and old enemies getting stronger day by day. We cannot defeat them by being alone. I am not a god yet, and even gods need subordinates to do their bidding. Lucifer tried to say something but raised his hand as no sound came out of Lucifer's mouth. As the majority soul holder, Michael started to fully realize his power and exerted his power over Lucifer. He then turned his gaze at Abras. You are right, we are not bringer of darkness. I found a girl who loves me more than anything. But you are still naive, Abras. We can't live peacefully, not now, not soon, not ever. You did nothing wrong and look what happened to you. You were betrayed. Your mistake cost you everyone you ever loved. When I'm done, no one will be in our way to a life you've dreamed of. Both of you will get what you want. Michael exerted his power over both of them. He raised his arms at both of them as a powerful force pulled Lucifer and Abras towards Michael. If we don't come to peace with each other, neither of us will live long to get anything we want. I only want a peaceful life. Abras was the first to speak. The gentle smile on his face returned and he looked to be at peace. I want our enemies to suffer, this world to fall on its knees before us and everything we desire. Lucifer's tone was more demanding rather than requesting. It made sense, after all, he was more of a maniac and devilish. We are the same. No more broken pieces. We are Michael. We are Abras, we are the Dark Lord. Michael screamed at the sky, his voice became the mix of Abras and Lucifer. Soon, the cloud shrouding Lucifer abandoned him and began to envelop Michael. We are one this time, both Lucifer and Abras said in unison. The very next moment, Lucifer and Abras turned into an orb of light and flew straight into Michael. Human, Michael, please wake up, don't leave me, ghosty, ghosty. Michael heard the voices of Gaia and Nightmare in the distance. Arg, back on the desolate mountain where Elodie was caged, Michael sat up. Human. Gaia's scream nearly broke his eardrum and her hug broke his rib cage. Elodie squatted before him before putting his hand on Michael's shoulder. You did it, your soul is now whole again, try the L world. COM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Chapter 456 The Dark Flames I host, Michael Cultivation Level, Core Strengthening Stage, Level 6 Experience Points, 0/600 000 Badass Points, 60,000, 40,000 Badass Points Loan, Skills and Spells, Wind Blast, LVL 6 Responsive Shield, LVL 8 Environment Scanning, LVL 6 Ignitia, LVL 8 Lightning Dash, LVL 6 Energy Devour, LVL 2 Soul Eater, LVL 1 Death Range, LVL 3 Eyes of Darkness, Normal, can sense the cultivation level of others. Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer, can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions. Cloud of Darkness, Lucifer, weak-willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless Spellcaster, Lucifer, in full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques: Swords of Destiny, 98% Mastery Ring of Fire, 88% Mastery Serpent Maga, 97% Mastery Occupation, Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford. Status: Healthy Goals: Control the world, rebuild the Order of Deathful _ new _ episode _ on the L world. COM platform. Utility function: Banker, LVL 5, Ratio, 1000 gold coins, 40 badass points, Runic Teleportation, X-ray Vision, also integrated with Eyes of Darkness, Wealth, 15 million gold. Special trait: 5-star Alchemist, 4-star Inventor. Subordinates: Gaia, Warrior, Loyalty level 100%. Raylene, 5-star Chef, Loyalty level 99%. Arya, Assassin, Loyalty level 68%. Heinberg, Warrior, Loyalty level 45%. Maxine, Warrior, Loyalty level 98%. Tiberius, Warrior, Loyalty level 55%. Sadie, Loyalty level 40%. Ricky, Loyalty level 98%. The Silent Reaper Crew, Pirates, Loyalty level 90%, Base of Operation, Sunrise Sect, the Abyssal, the Crypt Kingdom of Bradford. Familiars: Nightmare, Forest Dragon, Vidora, 3-headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation, Wind, 10% Mastery, Fire, 10% Mastery, Lightning, 15% Mastery, Darkness, 20%. The moment he woke up, he was taken into the system interface and presented with the status window where he noticed a couple of changes. He leveled up by 2 levels. Previously he was a core strengthening stage level 4 cultivator, but at the moment, the status window showed level 6. Reading through the status, he saw an entirely new row. Elemental Manipulation. As the name suggested, elemental manipulation was the power to control the elements themselves. In this world, only a few could control elements, including Michael. It was a power that belonged to the most powerful ancient gods. Their existence was hidden from the rest of the world by Skyhall, as the existence of new gods would cause chaos among the religious institutes and alter everything the people believed. So system, what's your explanation for what just happened? The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here at Lworld. Siom, the system level is dash. Thought so. Michael interrupted the system before it could finish its annoying answer. Victoria, you bitch. He suddenly remembered the massacre of the sanctuary. Since the soul piece was merged into one, Michael didn't feel like Abraz was another person. In addition to the changes in the status window, Michael also sensed changes in his mentality. For instance, he craved to control the world more than he felt before. This world lacked God's intervention and Michael wanted to fix that. Gaia was still embracing him with all her might, with Nightmare stuck between them. His vest started to feel wet by the tears gushing out of Gaia's eyes. Why are you wasting those precious tears? They should come from our enemy's eyes before dying. Michael lifted her head gently, he cupped her face, wiping the tears with his fingers. Smile. He smiled at her. You scared me, bastard. Sorry for the inconvenience caused by my broken pieces of the soul, he said sarcastically. Ghosty, are you fine now? Nightmare looked up at him. Michael never thought a dragon's face could show such a clear-cut expression. Seeing the dragon worry about him warmed his heart. "I'm whole again." Just like Ellider said, he looked at the half-elf standing obediently a few meters away from them. Michael let go of Gaia and Nightmare to thank Ellider. "You served me well, Ellider. I will grant you a wish for what you did. Ask," as he said to Ellider. Michael exerted his power over the surroundings to make everything darker. The storm clouds blanketed the sun according to his will. "I wish to serve you as your subordinate and accompany you in your journey to make this world better, my lord." Ellider knelt on his one knee, lowering his head. "Darkness is not evil, it's portrayed as evil. Remember, Ellider, darkness does not always equate to evil, just as light does not always bring good," said Michael. "I bring darkness so everyone can see the real light. Anything better than the current world will be a paradise, and I will transform this world into a paradise opposite to Skyhall's and Guardian Guild's vision." Michael saw the concern in Ellider's eyes. It was obvious to Michael. He wasn't willing to serve him because of loyalty, but to try to deviate Michael from transforming the world into a realm of darkness which was seen by Qinzhou in the future. "Does the host wish to accept Ellider as a subordinate?" Yes, Michael accepted Ellider as his subordinate to see his 42% loyalty. He didn't mind the low loyalty level, as he knew better than to expect 100% loyalty from an ancient elf who he knew only for a couple of days. "Rise," Michael gestured at Ellider as he stood up. "We should get out of here." Gaia wanted to ask more about how he merged the soul pieces, but before that, she wanted to leave this pocket dimension. Otherwise, someone might notice him missing and start investigating. "I'm not done yet," calmly said Michael. "Huh? Give me the teleportation scroll. I want the primordial flame. The latest _AP_SODIs are on the L-World COM website." Since Michael merged his soul with the third piece, the battle between Rowena and the fire giant that was controlled by him replayed in his mind. He was stunned by the power of the primordial flame. Coincidence or not, he was presented with a rare opportunity to acquire a primordial flame to himself through Professor Lane. Gaia saw the resolve in his eyes and realized there was no use in arguing with him. Therefore, she took out the parchment from her space ring with a flick of her wrist. Michael didn't open the scroll but threw it at Ellider. "You're coming with us," said Michael. It took Ellider a couple of minutes to make changes to the scroll to teleport 4 instead of 2. Surprisingly, the location of the destination was relatively closer to the gateway to this pocket dimension. "Here you go, my lord." Ellider now started to address Michael as my lord instead of Lucifer as he used to. Although Ellider sensed an aura of a god when he first met him, it had never been as strong as the aura he released after the ritual. He couldn't get himself to address Lucifer by his name. Michael passed the scroll to Gaia as she sent a sliver of arch energy into the scroll. The scroll began to glow brighter and brighter, and in a blink of an eye, a golden light enveloped them. After being teleported away from the pocket dimension, they noticed that they were back in the Black Forest. Before the 4 of them was a minor fallen tree in an overcast morass marked the entrance to the dungeon. Beyond the fallen tree lies a modest, clammy room. It's covered in dead vermin, ash, and moss. Ellider conjured a bright orb of light to light the path before them. The bright light revealed the rusted weapons racks and open crates, wasted and ravaged by time itself. As they went further through the dungeon, the pathway split into 2 paths. Michael retrieved 2 drones from the system's storage and sent one to explore each path. The path on his right had countless traps installed. But the drone activated none of them because the traps were not designed to sense arch energy. Whoever built the dungeon placed a void array and never expected one to use arch energy inside the dungeon. Several minutes later, the drone reached the end of the path where there was nothing but a dead end. Left, Michael entered the path on his left. Its twisted trail leads past long-lost rooms and tombs. Everything was cleaned up and there was nothing valuable that attracted Michael's attention. Since the drone was exploring ahead of them and sending live feed, Michael knew the path and traps in place. They avoided the usual pressure traps and tripwires by floating above the ground. As they traveled further and further, they began to notice countless broken skeletons on the ground. Moreover, there were bloodstains on the walls and the ceiling above them. "Is it me or do they look fresh?" Gaia pointed at the bloodstains on the wall. "The smell is also fresh." Nightmare took a whiff of the air and said. They cautiously proceeded onwards, deeper into the dungeon's expanse. Despite the various passages opened up to them, Michael led them through the correct one thanks to the drones. The various passages all looked so similar as this whole place was a maze. They eventually made it to what is likely the end. Only a ground filled with skeletons, broken limbs, and dead bodies could be seen between them and a single room at the end of the hall. Elidor sensed countless runes all around, somehow untouched by time and the elements. Gaia on the other hand waved her hand as the remains of skeleton soldiers floated towards them from the ground. She inspected the deep cuts on their bones as well as the scorched marks that almost burned the bones to ashes. The primordial flame, her inspection was abruptly interrupted by the words that came out of Michael's mouth. The drone he sent to explore the room at the end of the hall was destroyed the moment it entered the room, but not before sending him a millisecond feed of the room where he saw something magnificent, pitch-black flames. The flames, their beauty was beyond any words. They danced in the air as though they were waiting for someone to be partnered with. It was weird of him to feel like the flames were calling for him. Someone's been here recently, someone powerful. Elidor frowned after seeing the countless limbs of mountain trolls lying around. Defeating one mountain troll without using archenergy was extremely difficult if not impossible. But whoever ventured into the dungeon before they slaughtered so many? The only explanation Elidor could come up with was either they used archenergy or something much more powerful, because there was no way one could survive this dungeon without cultivation power. Maybe the Holy Maiden? Asked Gaia. Whoever it is, we will meet them soon, Michael said before slowly floating towards the room to claim the primordial flame to himself. The source of this _chapter, Elworld. Com. Chapter 457. The Dark Flames. The closer they got to the room, Gaia felt an immense amount of pressure crushing them. It was as though an invisible mountain landed on their shoulder. Nightmare gasped for air in Gaia's hands. Stay here. Noticing the hard time they were having, Michael decided not to take them with him into the chamber. I'm not gonna argue, Gaia agreed with him, and so did Elidor with a nod. When Michael entered the chamber, he saw the black flames dancing above a pillar made of marble. Like the flames had sensed him, they leaned in his direction. Michael slowly reached out for the flames as they advanced toward him. Warning. 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 Extreme level of radiation detected. The system went crazy in his head. He ignored all the red warning poppings that were blocking his sight. As he was getting closer to the black flames, the warnings and the shoutings of the system vanished. Does the host wish to absorb the dark flames? The system asked when he was just a few inches away from the flames. Yes, Michael touched the flames, and the moment the flame and his fingers met, a wave of energy surged over him, wave after wave. The flames seeped through his hand into his very being. He felt like he was being struck by thousands of lightning bolts simultaneously. But instead of pain, it was a feeling of comfort. Absorbing the dark flame, activating the energy devourer, experience points converted 50,000, experience points converted 100,000. You can find the rest of this content on the Elworld. Com platform. Experience points converted 70,000. The energy devourer continued to transform the excess energy into experience points. Michael thought it would stop in a few minutes, but on the contrary, it lasted until he began to level up rapidly. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 7. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 8. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Core for Strengthening Stage Level 9. His excitement was going through the roof. He bottled his excitement when he reached Core Strengthening Stage Level 9, as he thought his leveling up would stop there. Congratulations to the host for reaching the next stage, the Soul Refining Stage. Oh my god, he's breaking through. Gaia sensed the violent energy fluctuations in the surroundings. The celestial energy descended from the realm of angels, creating ripples in the night sky. The last time Michael witnessed the celestial energy descending was when he traveled to the Rainbow Island, where Layla's disciples prevented Christopher from reaching the Soul Refining Stage. The system regulated the celestial energy through Energy Devourer. Hence, the jumping from the Core Strengthening Stage to the Soul Refining Stage was so much smoother than the rest of the cultivators in the world. His skin turned darker and darker to the point he looked downright black except for his crimson-red eyes. But soon, the red fire in his eyes was too invaded by the dark flames and transformed from red to black. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 1. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The leveling up spree finally stopped at Soul Refining Stage Level 2. The dark flames now completely merged themselves with Michael's soul, strengthening every fiber in his body. The dark flame absorption is completed, all of the host's spells and skills has strengthened by the dark flames. The host is now immune to all the attacks under the Soul Refining stage except attacks powered by another primordial flame. The host's mastery over the darkness element is increased by 5%. New_chap_ters or pub_list on Elworld. The host's mastery over the fire element is increased by 5%. Potions and pills made using dark flames will have 94% purity. The spell Responsive Shield has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Shield. The spell Ignitia has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Ignitia. The spell Wind Blast has merged with dark flames and transformed into Dark Blast. The spell Ring of Fire has merged with dark flames and transformed into Ring of Dark Fire. All these spells were powered up by the dark flames and became much more powerful. All these changes transformed him from a mortal cultivator to a god-like existence. Anyone under the Soul Refining stage would have no chance of defeating him even if they used legendary spells. He could kill them with a single spell in his normal form, and if he was in his full Lucifer form, it would only take him a punch to destroy his foes. Moreover, in his complete Lucifer form, he could defeat anyone in the Soul Refining stage and had the chance to defeat cultivators under Fusion Stage Level 3. The Dark Flames was one of the power seeds of darkness. Every time he obtains a seed of darkness, his power would grow exponentially. No one in this world knew the existence of these power seeds, and just like the seeds of darkness, there existed the seeds of light. In the race to get the seeds, Noah already obtained heaven's flames. By absorbing the dark flames, Michael now equalized odds. However, compared to Noah, Michael was on the next level in terms of power because Michael obtained the primordial flames of his source power, darkness. Noah on the other hand absorbed heaven's flame, not the light flame. Hence, he didn't go through the change as Michael did. This feels good, Michael grinned as he conjured the dark flames. The majestic dark flames danced over his palms. Then in a blink of an eye, the flames turned emerald green. He could now change the flames to his will. Human, just as he was about to see what else he could do now, Gaia called him. He walked out of the chamber only to see the skeletons as well as the dead bodies reanimating again. In a couple of minutes, hundreds of skeleton soldiers and almost 20 mountain trolls stood in front of them. The dungeon expanded in size to accommodate all the trolls and the skeletons. Gaia could crush the skeletons no problem, but the trolls were the real threat. Even with her cultivation, if the trolls managed to get their hands on her before she cast spells, she was as good as dead. Edlitter felt the same, except he had no core strengthening stage cultivation. If he were to fight the army of skeletons in front of him, even with his runes, he could survive the dungeon for a few minutes top. Due to the army of skeletons and trolls in front of her, Gaia had no time to be stunned by his breakthrough into the soul refining stage. The sight of hundreds of skeletons and trolls didn't scare him the slightest. On the contrary, it put a grin on his face. Visit Elworld. For the best no_vel_read_ng experience, stay back, Michael said calmly before walking towards the skeletons and the trolls. Immediately the skeletons standing in front rushed at him, waving the rusty swords in their hands. Dark Blast, Gaia witnessed a dark crescent wave shoot out of him, blasting the skeletons to pieces. Everything the dark wave touched burned to oblivion. With a single spell, Michael decimated at least 30 skeleton soldiers, and he didn't even use his full power. Lightning dash, in a flash, he dashed to the center of the army. Ring of Dark Fire, before the skeletons and trolls could react, he cast another spell. A circle of dark flames shot out of him, scorching everything around him in a 5-meter radius. It didn't stop at that, as the ring continued to send towering waves of dark flames. The flames burnt the trolls to ash like dried sticks. Unfortunately, these skeletons and trolls had no arch energy in them. Otherwise, he would have earned enough experience points to level up yet again. Still, Michael wasn't disappointed. They proved to be good dummies to test his evolved spells. The display of his power left Ellider in a daze. Each of his spells had the power to rival the most powerful legendary spells. They were not as fancy as some but deadlier than most. In a few minutes, he had burnt almost 200 skeletons and 20 trolls. The most powerful spell in his arsenal turned out to be Ignitia. Merged with dark flames, the golden lightning bolts turned into bolts of black lightning. Each bolt blasted through the skeletons and burst open the trolls' heads into red mist as though they were melons. Half of the army had been reduced to ashes. At this point, Gaia wasn't even surprised by his power. Now time for my full form. Michael willed the system to equip his Lucifer armor, activate Cloud of Darkness as well as Eyes of Darkness, which flared up in black due to the dark flames instead of crimson red. The dungeon fell dark all of a sudden. The remaining skeletons and the trolls rushed at him mindlessly. They had no strategy or fear as they were just animated corpses that had a single purpose, killing the intruders. Death range, the dungeon became darker as Ellider noticed a black circle expand from him, wrapping everything in its path. Ring of Dark Fire, this time when he cast the spell, the dungeon trembled. The Ring of Dark Flames was more violent, like surging tsunami waves. Ellider and Gaia heard unearthly vibrations as well as sensed the energy pulsating in the dungeon. Boom! One single wave, only one single wave. Every skeleton and troll was reduced to nothingness. Not even ashes remained after the dark flames brushed past them. Visit Elworld. COM for a better user experience. This is my true power, Michael mumbled under his breath. Even he was startled by his own power. Thinking that he only used 20% of his power and didn't enhance the spell further with celestial energy made him feel sorry for his enemies. Ghosty is scary. Nightmare's eyes went wide open. In the corner of his little heart, a sliver of fear emerged just like Ellider. Chapter 458 Pirate Heaven. Aiden inside the Ice Palace, Rowena meditated with her eyes closed. Her eyes slowly opened when she sensed Bai Ning approaching her. Bai Ning waved her hand as the mist shrouding the room faded away, revealing the empty room built of cold ice. Holy Maiden, Bai Ning approached Rowena. I scoured the Black Forest but I didn't find the fire giant's remains. Rowena slowly opened her eyes after hearing Bai Ning. That is now a problem of Mazeroth, Rowena said coldly, but Holy Maiden, the energy I sensed from the fire giant was something ominous and sinister. It's the Dark Lord. Bai Ning felt a chill running through her spine the moment Rowena said this. She suspected it, still, it was shocking to hear from the Holy Maiden. I must alert the elders. Don't bother. I already ordered them to stand down. Bai Ning was stunned. What? Why? How long have you been searching for the Dark Lord? Rowena stood up. Bai Ning couldn't guess what was the meaning behind her question. For nearly 4,000 years, answered Bai Ning. You didn't find him then and you are not going to find him now. If I am right, he has covered all his tracks. Rowena was calm, too calm despite the situation. Bai Ning disliked the Holy Maiden taking the threat posed by the Dark Lord so lightly. However, the old woman knew better than to disagree with Rowena. What do you suggest we should do, Holy Maiden? Nothing, as Rowena said. She gracefully walked toward the wall behind her and waved her hand. The wall slowly split open, revealing the floating mountains and puffy clouds beneath them. Rowena closed her eyes, absorbing the cold energy of the dazzling moonlight. The Dark Lord won't stay in Akilan realm for long. We have to catch him, Bai Ning said to herself. When the time comes, we will meet the Dark Lord. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here at Elworld. COM Rowena would rather focus on getting stronger than wasting her time looking for the Dark Lord. It was not her job but the Great 8 clans. She approached Bai Ning and then flicked her wrist as a golden parchment appeared in her hands. The scroll looked exactly the same as the invitation to Mazeroth that Ghost received. Mazeroth has chosen Sabrina. Send this to her. Rowena handed over the parchment to Bai Ning. Holy Maiden, if I may, can I ask you something? Rowena nodded at Bai Ning. Your brother was also chosen by Mazeroth, but why didn't he come? Because I told him not to. Not yet. Bai Ning was stunned. Do you remember the assassins you brought me, Bai Ning? Bai Ning began to sweat under her robes despite the chillness of the room. An oblivious spell was cast on them. Oblivious spell? Bai Ning's brows arched up. The oblivious spell was created by Qin Jiu herself. This spell could only be cast by someone from Sky Hall. Almost 4,000 years ago Qin Jiu invented the spell to forget about the Dark Lord. It was way before Qin Jiu mustered the courage to fight back. After she escaped from the future, she desperately wanted to erase the memories of the Dark Lord. Those memories were beyond horrible. With her 3 best friends' help, she created Oblivious, which could erase someone's memories in part or as a whole. However, when she realized the risk of using such a spell, she made sure that only someone from Sky Hall could cast the spell. Before disappearing from Aquilan Realm, Wulfric used the Oblivious spell on Elidar, erasing all of Elidar's memories of Wulfric as well as those who participated in the ritual. Yes. You know what this means, right? Asked Rowena as Bai Ning felt the room becoming colder and colder. The Holy Maiden's eyes flickered with cold killing intent. Someone from Sky Hall, cast it. Each word of these words could barely escape her mouth. Just by thinking about the possibility that someone inside Sky Hall may have targeted the Holy Maiden's family rendered her body a living statue. She could not even breathe looking at the Holy Maiden. You wouldn't happen to know who might be this traitor, would you? Rowena placed her hand on Bai Ning's shoulder as the old woman's entire body froze for a moment. Holy Maiden, I want everything about everyone in Sky Hall. You have a week. When Rowena took her arm off of Bai Ning's shoulder, the ice layer covering the old woman's body vanished into thin air. Yes, Holy Maiden, Bai Ning shuddered. The old woman bowed deeply in fear, and when she was about to turn back and leave, Rowena called her again. New novel _chap_ters are published here, Elworld. Com. Bai Ning, Holy Maiden, not a single word about this to anyone. Rowena's words were colder than usual. They made the old woman shiver. I swear on my life, Holy Maiden, I won't speak of this to anyone. After Bai Ning left the room, Rowena waved her hand as the walls sealed close. Whoever you are, you dug your own grave. Rowena's killing intent rose through the roof. More than anything in this world, Rowena loved her family the most. The elders of Sky Hall advised her to cut the ties with her family as a Holy Maiden should, but Rowena outright refused it. She would destroy anyone who dared to threaten the safety of her family, even if that someone belonged to the Sky Hall. For Rowena, her family mattered more than the Sky Hall or the elders. Cast on the eastern side of a southern continent, the town of Aden was home to pirates led by one of the 3 pirate lords, Gibby's Black Main Jet. This town wasn't built by an island by accident, as it had spiritual significance, which was of great importance to the pirates of Aden and its success despite the myth that pirates didn't give any importance to spiritual well-being. The town itself looked hideous and striking at the same time. With its willow wood rooftops, redwood walls, and white, sandy beaches. The main attraction was the lighthouse, which was built 21 years ago and designed by the elves. The pirate population in Aden grew to over 2,000 residents, quickly outnumbering the 100 or so original law-abiding citizens. This once port city belonged to the Royal Navy of Ar had quickly grown lawless and became an exciting mecca for criminals, escapees, former slaves, and mercenaries. In simple words, Aden was the safe haven for all the pirates in the southern continent where they lived as freemen doing whatever they wanted to plunder whoever they wanted. The sea was calm under the morning sun. Everything was going on as usual in Aden. Some pirates were sunbathing after drinking a little too much rum, and some pirates were making their way to the nearby tavern to drink rum after vomiting because they had drunk too much rum. No matter where one turned, they could see the pirates drinking, pissing, and having sex wherever they want as though they had no idea of privacy or shame. The place was completely lawless, but for the pirates, this place was their republic where the freemen reigned. Among the drunk pirates, only one remained steady. This pirate was barely 4 feet tall and one would hardly recognize him as a pirate instead of as a kid. Finally they are here. This little pirate was none other than Shorty. He was sent to Aden as a scout with a few others who were lying God knows where fully drunk. Hey look, war frigate approaching. What the hell? What flag are they flying? Some of the pirates who were not so drunk saw the 5 ships approaching their island and began to wake the others. Old Bertha was gracefully sailing in front like a formidable leader. The name Old Bertha hardly suited her, as now she was fitted with brand new cannons, reinforced black hull, black sails, brand new rudder, as well as 2 mortars, one between each neighboring pair of masts for long-range battle. Behind her were 4 brigades, and they were all sailing in a rhombus formation. Try the L World. COM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Ding. 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 Shorty heard the bell sounds ring across the island, alerting the rest of the pirates and mainly, the pirate captains. It's Pirate Lord Corey, they are flying Pirate Lord Corey's flags. The experienced pirates quickly recognized the lips and lightning bolt symbol on the black flag. The moment they saw the flags, they knew the ships belonged to Pirate Lord Corey and did not dare to fire the mortars. The residents of Aden quickly arrived at the port to see the 5 ships anchoring. Their eyes were glued to the mean-looking Old Bertha. They had never seen a ship completely painted in black, as pirates considered painting the ships a waste of gold coins. Shorty couldn't wait to join back on Old Bertha. He was getting sick of living in Aden. All one could do on this island was get drunk, and since Shorty quit drinking so he could become a cultivator, he had nothing else to do except watch others get drunk and hump. Nonetheless, he still couldn't join his crew, not yet. Standing under a coconut tree with a few other pirates, Shorty saw Gibson walking out of Bertha first, followed by Tiberius. Shorty was surprised to see Tiberius with Gibson instead of Maxine. That's her, Pirate Lord Corey, really? She is scary as fuck. Who is that crippled old man and the guy behind her? Shoo, she might hear you. Keep your mouths shut. Don't you know she can kill you with a single look? She is a witch, the pirates began to murmur. Most of them were shocked to see Corey because she was seldom seen outside of her island. Even Blackmane made more appearances to the pirates than her. Hence, when she came to Aden, the pirates were astonished. Moreover, she arrived with only 4 ships rather than with a small fleet. The pirates followed Corey and the men at a safe distance. Most were curious to see the purpose of Corey's visit, while some just blindly followed the others. Shorty followed the men to the west side of the island where Pirate Lord Blackmane resided with a couple of his pirate captains. At the moment, Pirate Lord Blackmane went somewhere else, taking a small fleet with him, and the one who was staying in Blackmane's castle was another Pirate Lord Vance. The castle was not as majestic as the castles on other continents. It was rather a rundown castle with 5 slim, square towers scattered in a seemingly random pattern. They had been built for an ideal defense and were connected by fortified, heavy walls made of basalt. Their many holes and remnants of siege battle could be seen in the walls. Wide windows were scattered generously around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with same-sized holes for archers and artillery. Several minutes later, they finally reached the castle gates and were greeted by a red-haired lady with 2 rapiers hanging on either side of her slender waist and a bold man in tattered golden robes at the gates. Full _ current _ novel on Elworld. COM, Pirate Lord Corey, what a pleasant surprise. The red-haired lady spoke in a seductive tone. Pirate Lord Vance is eagerly waiting for you inside. The man on the other hand spoke in a rather cold tone, but Corey ignored both of their greetings and strode into the castle to spread the name of their new lord. Chapter 459. Become Lord Lucifer's Pirate Lord. After they entered the castle grounds, Gibson noticed barrels of rum, hey dummies, and cannons being repaired by pirates. Unlike outside the castle gates, the pirates inside were doing some kind of chores instead of being drunk and lying on the sandy ground. There were at least 50 archers atop the castle walls, all glancing at them. If they were to make a single wrong move, hundreds of arrows would riddle their bodies in a blink of an eye. Even if the archers had bad aim, they had the advantage of height. In addition to the archers, several groups of pirates sat in groups around campfires. These groups were the pirate version of patrolling soldiers. While Gibson was counting the pirates, Tiberius looked at the holes and remnants of cannon blasts in the castle walls. He could guess how many siege battles these castle walls must have gone through before submitting to the pirates. In Tiberius' mind, the pirates were wasting the island's potential by just treating it as their one super big tavern. There was no law, order, or even basic hygiene. He remembered Lucifer saying if these pirates were left ungoverned, they would not only be a threat to others but also to themselves. He could now agree with Lucifer's statement. He wondered why the Royal Navy of Ar didn't bombard this island and deal with the pirate threat. Why didn't we see any of Blackman's fleet on the sea? Asked Tiberius. The pirates were not fond of a strict hierarchy and calling others my lords. They considered themselves freemen, so even the pirate lord could be called by his name without any titles. Pirates hated these noble titles. Most of them hardcore pirates like Blackmane believed respect is earned through power and riches, not by titles. The only titles they allowed were captain and pirate lord. But the title captain gave no immunity to the captain as the title king would. If the crew became unhappy with their captain, they would throw the captain off the board or hang him or her in a heartbeat. The same was true for the pirate lord too, but there was never been an incident where the crew mutinied against a pirate lord before. Why? You want to test us? The bold guy in golden robes snickered. Don't mind my friend here, he's being a bitch because his ship is under repair and couldn't go plunder as he wants. The female pirate chuckled to calm both of these men before either of them started a fight. We don't usually anchor our fleet in Aden, friend. As they say, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Tiberius agreed with the pirate woman as they walked past several pirates rolling barrels after barrels into a cabin. Just the smell permeating from those barrels was enough to make their taste buds savor the sweetness of the rum within. So Vance is still plundering only the ships that carry rum? Pirate Lord Corey asked the red-haired pirate. Of course. Isn't that genius, Pirate Lord Corey? We hit ships with gold, sugar, gems, and all that will turn into gold coins and go straight to buy rum. Why go through all that trouble when you can directly take what you really want? The latest _AP_SODIES are on _the L World. Com website. It shouldn't make sense, but it does. Corey chuckled at first. Tiberius thought it stupid to plunder only the ships that carry rum shipments, but after meeting the pirates, it sounded way less stupid to him. If anything, this was a stroke of genius because most Navy ships carried gold, gems, ores, sugar, and weapon shipments. Plundering those ships was not only risky but would also make them a threat to a kingdom or worse, a threat to the Ar Empire. Rum, however, carried by merchant ships, and plundering merchant ships was like taking candy from a baby compared to plundering a Navy ship. Besides, like the red-haired pirate said, even if the pirates plundered tons of gold, their earnings would eventually be used to buy rum and whores. By directly plundering rum and the valuables from the merchant ships, they could easily get both without any hassle. Eventually, after passing several more rum warehouses, they climbed a set of gray stone stairs to step onto the throne hall, which had been turned into a lavish tavern. Several long oak tables were placed from the bar counter to the end of the hall. As expected, the primary clientele of the tavern was pirates, and the maids were ladies who generously revealed their deep cleavage to their customers. Of course, some outright seemed uncomfortable putting up with all the butt slapping and hand grabbing. Tiberius' nose twitched due to the stench of piss, vomit, and rum. Despite the stench, the tavern itself was packed and lively thanks to the singing and dancing. I have to give it to them, they are one happy bunch, Tiberius thought in his mind. Building a country for the freedom fighters and managing it was harder than he had imagined. Some days, he would prefer to fight in the arena than to go through the necessities they want and the gold coins they have. The task of being a ruler was stressing him, and Maxine suggested he take a rest and spend his time in Old Bertha. Live a pirate life, that what she said to him. Living with them helped him more than he liked to admit. He had no worries, no responsibilities. He just trained, sailed the seas, singing with the crew, and drank and ate as hearty as he wanted. Being a pirate was fun, except the world was changing, and if the pirates didn't change with it, only extinction awaited them. Hey Melina, you want a drink? A bearded old man raised his mug and shouted at the red-haired pirate as they were making their way to the stairs behind the bar counter. Join you later, the red-haired pirate waved at the old man. Meanwhile, some pirates noticed the tattoo-covered Corey and recognized her. Tiberius and Gibson could hear various chatter focused on Corey. None of them dared to raise their voice or approach Corey because of her infamous reputation as a witch. Melina and the bold man knocked on the door after climbing the stairs leading to the second floor. This underscore content is taken from Elworld. Come in. Melina opened the room to be welcomed by a man sitting behind a large oak table with several maps and rum bottles. He had a pair of dark brown eyes, a tanned complexion, straight black hair hanging over his broad shoulders, and a stubble beard. Currently, he was sitting on a chair and drinking with his feet atop the table. A long greatcoat was hanging on the stand near the table, and he was in a dark shirt revealing his chiseled chest and matching gray leather trousers. He also wore a stud earring on both ears as well as a scar that ran across his left cheek. What a fucking surprise. Pirate Lord Corey, here in Aden, outside of Her Witch Island, just like his look, his thick voice too had a flair of cruelty to it. Go entertain yourselves. Gibson dismissed the crew by sending them to the tavern below with a pouch of gold coins. After the crew left the room, the bold man closed the door as Corey took the chair in front of the table while Tiberius and Gibson sat on the chairs behind Corey. They let Pirate Lord Corey lead the negotiation as they planned. What can I say? Times are changing, Vance, Corey calmly said. I assume your sudden visit to Aden is not to enjoy our hospitality. Not entirely true. I heard you can't find a finer rum anywhere else. Whores too. Vance grabbed Melina's hands before pulling her closer to him. She sat on the chair's arm, seductively laughing. I heard things too, Corey. Things like the legendary Silent Reaper resurface, one of your pirate captains leaving your side to join another crew, and my favorite, Vance paused for a second and went on, magic-wielding captain. If I was not too drunk, I heard he's called Lucifer. Lord Lucifer, Corey corrected Vance, and when Vance saw the look on Corey's face, he was surprised. Initially, he didn't believe such a rumor that someone was using magic inside the void line. To this day, he couldn't believe Corey was able to use magic. Imagine his surprise when his crew told him that the captain of the black ship could cast spells and use magic. Did I hear you right? Melina, did she say Lord? Because I heard she say Lord, Vance asked Melina. Yes, she did. Full_our current_ novel on Elworld. So when you said times are changing, you meant you became someone else's bitch. Gibson quickly pressed Tiberius' feet with his fake leg to stop him from lunging at Vance. Like it or not, they were in a pirate fortress without Lord Lucifer or the Dark Queen. Old Bertha could give a hell of a fight, but she wouldn't be able to survive if all the pirate ships and defenses around Aden bombarded them. Being a bitch is better than being dead, Vance. You have to be alive to enjoy the pirate life. Corey smiled, but behind that smile, one could see the hidden menacing look. If I don't know any better, I would consider that as a threat. Vance's voice became colder. What I'm here to offer you is an opportunity of a lifetime, Vance. Corey leaned forward, getting richer and stronger without making an enemy out of the kingdoms and how does this sound, Vance? Let's just assume I'm interested in such an opportunity. What's the catch gonna be? Vance did not seem to be interested at all. Instead of looking at Corey while he was speaking, he was playing with Melina. Tiberius' eyes twitched. He knew by looking at Vance's attitude and the way he talked, that this negotiation was destined to fail. Join Lord Lucifer's ranks as his pirate lord. The moment Corey spoke these words, Vance stopped playing with Melina's lips. He turned his gaze to Corey, and those pair of eyes were flowing with murder. In other words, you want me to be. Vance stood up. A bitch. He banged the table as the rum bottles on the table blasted away. Despite Vance's outburst, Corey was still calm. Visit Elworld. .com for a better reading experience. What if I say Lord Lucifer can grant us immortality? Melina and the bold man who listened to Corey were startled. Vance wasn't interested in riches and power like many others in this world. He would rather live his life plundering rum and drinking than capitalize on a golden opportunity. There was nothing much Corey could offer that would tempt him except immortality. Chapter 460, The Almighty Sunrise Sect. That shit doesn't work for us. Your sales pitch would have worked on those freaks who call themselves cultivators, Vance snickered. Sigh, Corey sighed. It seems like you need a demonstration. Vance saw Corey close her eyes. Subconsciously he took a step back from the table. Corey felt the crystal pendant on her neck warming up. The warmth slowly spread through every being in her body. Crystal dagger. She opened her eyes abruptly, raising her hand at Vance. Melina and the bald man immediately jumped in front of Vance to defend, though they were too late. They only felt a gush of wind blow past their faces. Fuck. Vance stumbled back as a blue dagger floated in the air just an inch away from right between his eyes. He shuddered, and without his control, he started to sweat under his shirt. Melina and the bald man's faces lost all color and became pale. Melina's hands on her rapier were shaking. This had heard about cultivators casting spells and using magic, but this was the first time they had witnessed it in real life. They couldn't stop themselves from shivering. The dagger was still hovering in the air, radiating a chilling aura. Arg fuck, Vance growled when he tried to grab the dagger. The dagger's cold surface burned his palm. This is just a taste of power. Lord Lucifer blessed me with Vance. In front of him, we are powerless and insignificant as ants. Imagine the possibilities of having such powers, Vance. We can be much more than pirate lords. Corey put her hand down as the dagger vanished into thin air. Only now Vance could let out a heavy breath. He just stared death in its eyes and survived to tell the tale. His mind was slowly digesting the fact of how insignificant and powerless he was, just as she said. If Corey wanted, she could have simply killed him and the two pirate captains in a blink of an eye without making any fuss. They could have walked out of the island simply, as by the time the drunken pirates noticed their bodies, they would have been long gone. Still, every fiber in his body screamed against him at the thought of serving someone else other than himself. He felt as if he was being forced to bend his knees. He preferred to die on his feet than to live on his knees like a true pirate. You have 2 weeks to give us your answer, Vance. Corey stood up to leave. New_chap_ters or pub_list on Elworld. What if I didn't? Vance's question stopped her on her way to the door. Nothing. Corey didn't even turn back. If you can't grab an opportunity when it slaps you on the face, you're not the pirate I thought you are. Tiberius followed Corey and Gibson behind, leaving the pirate stunned. He couldn't help chuckling, noticing the fear in their eyes. Pirate Lord Corey, is it okay to leave them? You know, they might blabber, Gibson asked as they were climbing down the stair. They should. Corey smiled. Everything went according to Lord Lucifer's plan. Gibson wasn't surprised by her words, and neither was Tiberius. They both knew that Lucifer was as cunning as he was powerful. Those pirates should be grateful they didn't come here, Tiberius calmly said. The they he meant were Lucifer and Dark Queen. I've yet to see someone live after saying no to him. The trio left Aiden after staying for a day. Shorty handed over all the information he gathered in Aiden to Gibson, which was then transferred to Maxine. Old Bertha started her voyage searching for Black Mane, the last pirate lord. The Broad River sect of Kingdom Kethen was a beautiful castle surrounded by majestic gardens and fountains magically created out of the crystal blue lake surrounding the sect. The sect looked very impressive despite having stood for over 500 years. Many buildings were being built and the existing buildings were getting repaired. The major construction work was on the main castle. It was believed that the magnificent fountain in the middle of the sect's park had healing and beautifying properties. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here at Elworld. The sect had an average reputation under the previous sect leader Matthias. However, the new sect leader Ella raised the reputation of the sect to one of the best in Kethen after merging the Broad River sect with the famous Sunrise sect of Rivertown. Many nobles in Kethen and the fellow sects tried to destroy the Broad River sect by fanning the flames between Ella and Matthias during the inner conflict. However, the civil war soon came to an end when the majority of the students and elders sided with Ella to merge with the Sunrise sect, and Matthias was burnt to death by the bandits. The sect was still investigating Matthias' death to apprehend the bandits who killed him, except many believed it was Ella who killed Matthias with the help of Ghost, the rising star of Rivertown, who now held the title of king on top of many. The name Sunrise sect was hanging on the gateway instead of their previous name Broad River sect. They engraved the golden words on black metal. At the moment, Ella was going through a stack of documents located on a long oak table in a spacious room with many windows and many portraits of the previous sect leaders. The portrait of Ella's family, a bearded man and a black-haired lady in a red dress, hung behind Ella. There were some delicate silver instruments puffing smoke and whirring on a table next to the big oak table. One could also see several book racks filled with ancient books and parchments. All of them were illuminated by the majestic chandelier right above the crimson-red rug. Any visitors could rest on the comfy black couches given to her by Claire as a gift. In addition to the couches, there was a wooden throne-like chair located just before the oak table for having official talks. Unlike before, Ella did not wear a dark cloak covering herself. Thanks to Ghost's potions and cream, her burnt skin recovered its natural glow. Her skin now glowed like jade, so she wore colorful clothes that expressed her joy rather than gloomy dark robes. Despite her 40-plus age, she looked as though she was still in her late teens. She had already started to receive many proposals only to get rejected by her one after another. She was rejecting not because she had no plans to get married but rather because she was waiting for the right man. Knock. 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 While she was reading all the income and expenses reports of the sect, someone knocked on the door. "Headmistress, come in," Ella said and put down the report to take a break. A young female disciple dressed in a long black coat with red linings walked into the room carrying a cup and saucer. This _content is taken from Elworld. Headmistress, here is your tea." The young girl brightly smiled at Ella and placed the tray on the table. "And headmistress, sect leader Olivier has arrived and is on his way to meet you." Ella took a sip of tea and felt a surge of sweet aromatic energy exploding in every fiber in her body. The exhaustion of reading through the report evaporated along with the smoke coming out of the tea. She took a deep breath as the tasting buds in her tongue had a small party. "Headmistress," the young girl chuckled silently looking at Ella's expression. "Oh yeah, Olivier, good. It's time I had a little chat with him." "You can go now, Peggy." The young girl bowed, and when the girl reached the door, Ella stopped her. "Peggy, Hades is reopening today. Tell Master Ricky to book a table for 2". Just by thinking of Hades, Ella's mouth started drooling. To be honest, she could not wait to finish the meeting with Olivier and stuff her belly with as much food as she could. It had been too long since she tasted Raylene's cooking. She was glad to be in the close circle of Ghost. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to get a table in Hades whenever she wanted. Even the Princess of Royal Land and her friends had to book a table 2 weeks earlier. "As you wish, headmistress." After the girl left the room, Ella continued to enjoy every sip of tea. She felt the 1,000 she spent on getting a flask of Raylene's tea was totally worth it. Each and every sip was sweet, mind-boggling goodness that soothed her from within. Only she hated the feeling of the bottom of the cup. "Headmistress is waiting for you, my lord." Ella heard the guards outside speaking to someone, and shortly after, she saw Olivier, a bald old man with a bushy white beard, strolling into the room. The old man looked to be in his late 70s and wore plain white robes. He looked to be in his late 70s while his real age ranged between 100 to 150. Ella noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Everyone in the sect leader's circle knew the man was struggling to break through to the core strengthening stage. He was stuck on the core formation level 10 for more than 10, and even Ghost's revitalizing pills or cultivation enhancers could not break his bottleneck. That didn't mean Ghost was unable to help Olivier with his bottleneck. In fact, he left a crate of special potions just for people who were suffering from cultivation bottlenecks. A potion from that crate was Ella's major bargaining chip with the negotiation she is about to have with Olivier. Visit Elworld. .com for a better reading experience. Thank you for coming to meet me, sect leader Olivier. Please take a seat. Ella gestured at Olivier to take a seat. Regardless, the current Broad River sect was much more prominent than Oliver's White Cloud sect, and in fact, the two sects shouldn't be compared, as the current Broad River sect had become a mammoth in Kethen. That was why Olivier came all the way from his sect to meet Ella when she summoned him. Offending Ella would be like offending the Sunrise sect. Nowadays, they had the same influence and power to be equal to the 3 big sects themselves. "How would you like to join our Sunrise sect, sect leader Olivier?" Chapter 461 Takeovers. Elon and Azair were yet to recover from the Hydra's outcry. Apart from a few devices invented by the Guardian Guild, there was no way to gauge someone's cultivation level, as they had been doing forever. Nonetheless, Ella needed no device to tell Olivier was still at the core formation stage. The dark circles under his eyes and the collarbones building out were enough. Come again, sect leader Ella, Olivier frowned. He could swear that he heard her asking him to join her sect. Drop the formalities, Olivier. Call me Ella, Ella giggled, waving her hand. Olivier was still staring at her without batting an eye as she continued, rumors claiming you're looking for a new successor to inherit your position as sect leader. Any truth to those rumors? Oliver carried the torch of sect leader of the White Cloud sect for nearly 60 years. Until 2 decades ago, the density of arch energy was extremely low in the world. Thus, the majority of the cultivators born before that time could not reach high stages of cultivation like the youngsters nowadays. So reaching the core formation stage 60 years ago was a pretty big deal. Olivier was considered a prodigy and inherited the sect leader position from his predecessor. The stress of being a sect leader had slowed down his cultivation speed. It took him 40 years to reach level 10 of the core formation stage from level 1, and he spent millions in gold coins buying rare potions and items. Thanks to Ghost and his potions, he was able to cultivate much faster than he used to. Still, it was not enough to make him break through to the core strengthening stage. Since many of his friends advised him to leave his stressful sect leader position, he was looking for a new successor, except he had been doing it under wraps. How the hell did Ella know about this was beyond Olivier. However, rather than focusing on how, Olivier just sighed. Matter of fact, I am looking for someone to take over the sect after I enter seclusion. Something told Ella that it might be his last seclusion. Many cultivators who were suffering bottlenecks would go to the Lonely Mountains as a last attempt to break through to the next stage. The Lonely Mountain was an uninhabitable place where extreme yang and yin energy were always colliding with each other. Due to these two extreme energies, the place only had 2 climates, freezing cold and burning hot. 9 out of 10 cultivators would die trying to break their bottlenecks. If a cultivator could absorb and survive the yin and yang energies, it would break the bottleneck. Venturing into the Lonely Mountain was the last resort for any cultivator. I've been following your sect closely, Olivier. You have certainly done a good job keeping the sect from declining. But your sect has so much potential. It could go beyond and further. Surprisingly, Olivier gently smiled, shaking his head slowly. Ella, I lived long enough to know what you're trying to do. You want my sect to be merged with the Sunrise sect. You literally said that. I've been doing what's right for my sect ever since I became the sect leader. Give me one reason why I should agree to this merger. She would be lying if she said she wasn't pleasantly surprised by Oliver's directness. Wearing a smile on her face, Ella waved her hand as a glistening emerald green potion bottled inside a palm-sized vial appeared on the table. This is my reason. 1 inch. Olivier did not recognize the potion, but he sensed a great amount of energy coming from the vial. Before handing over the potion to Olivier, she grabbed a golden parchment and slid it toward Olivier. And this is reason number 2. Go on, open and take a look. Olivier untied the red ribbon to read the contents inside, and the moment he laid his eyes on what was written, he was taken aback by surprise. The parchment contained all the financial information about the Broad River sect for the last 5 years. No sect leader would reveal this to another one, especially another sect leader. In addition to the financial side of things, the parchment also contained the cultivation status of a number of disciples and elders. You put your soul and body into your sect, Olivier. It's your baby, so it's no lie that major change such as a merger would greatly concern you. What you're holding in your hands is to reassure you that if you agreed to this merger, it will be in the sect's best interest. Ella paused for a moment and continued, before we merged the Sunrise sect and became a part of them, it would be nothing but a miracle to see S disciple breakthrough to the core formation stage before the age of 30. But now, once a month, we get a new core formation stage disciple. Each student now has their own cultivation space, and they get free potions and pills, made by Ghost himself. Even the disciples of the 3 big sects don't have such an advantage. It was shocking, but Olivier agreed with Ella in his mind. He also did his research about her and the sect just as she did. No sect would give their disciples potions and pills every month, let alone for free. It was crazy even to think that they had been giving potions and pills made by the 5-star alchemist for free as though they were candies. His disciples and even the elders had to wait in the line for a day to get their hands on the potions and pills made by the Ghost, yet the Broad River sect disciples were getting them for free every month. If it wasn't for the rule that a disciple would get only one potion and pill of each kind, the students of the Sunrise sect and Broad River sect would have made a ton of money by selling them on the side. The demand for Ghost's products was going through the roof. And if I'm right, you are planning to go to the Lonely Mountain for seclusion. You don't have to if I can help you. Ella slid the potion towards Olivier. Have you heard the news that Ghost could reach 90% purity? Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Olivier nodded. Following the events that happened in Hades, every newspaper including the royal newspaper had printed Ghost's ability to reach 90% purity in alchemy products he made and his admission to Maze Roth on their front page. At that time, the news spread throughout the continent like wildfire. Not a single soul was unaware of this. That's a 90% pure potion brewed by Ghost himself. And you can't get this particular potion anywhere. It's one of the special potions brewed by him, especially for cultivators such as you. Oliver's hands trembled while holding the potion in his hand. In 1 month, you will be able to break through to the core strengthening stage if you take this potion. You are welcome to take this potion with you and appraise it for yourself. No cultivator would blindly drink an unknown potion no matter how pure it was. What if it was poison instead of a miraculous potion? They would first appraise the potions using a trusted alchemist of their own before taking them. Although no alchemist who was qualified enough to appraise Michael's potions existed in Elon, one could find if it was poison or not, unless, of course, Michael didn't want them to find it. Despite Olivier knowing she was being so generous and trusting to complete the merger, he still appreciated her gestures. What if I said no to the merger? Do I have to give this back? Of course not. Ella waved her hand with a smile. Whether you accept it or not, this potion is yours. Unless you don't want it. Oliver's hand clutched the potion tighter. His heart told him to let go, but his brain screamed at him to hold on to the potion. If what Ella said was true, it finally could bring his suffering to an end and make him reach the core strengthening stage. As I said, your sect is your child and every parent would want what's best for their child. Don't think that if you agree to the merger, you will be sacked. You will still be the head of your sect who makes all the major decisions. Only your title would change from sect leader to headmaster. Olivier took a deep breath. I've served my sect long enough, Ella. It's time for me to step down and a young one to take over the sect. Ella's eyes twitched after she heard him. She refused to believe after everything she offered to convince him the old coot wasn't agreeing to the merger. Luckily what she heard next put a smile on her face. However, I will take a week's time and think about this merger. It's a big decision nonetheless. I will make one last decision that might lead my sect into a golden age before I leave my position. Olivier shook Ella's hands and left the room with the potion. It was a sign that he would get the sect's affairs in order before agreeing to the merger. 2 sects down, 3 more to go. Ella grinned. The Sunrise sect took over not 1 but 3 sects in total, and with Oliver's sect, the number would be 4. Ella was leading the takeovers in front. She was a ruthless negotiator and a leader. That was why Michael chose her to take over the sect instead of Claire. Not to be mistaken, Claire was a great leader, but she was not as ruthless as Ella. For instance, if Olivier chose not to accept the merger, Claire would have accepted his choice. On the other hand, Ella would have incited a civil war inside his sect first, and then, she would have killed him and replaced him with someone who would do her bidding. Just as Lucifer's influence was expanding throughout the southern continent, Ghost's power slowly grew in Elon through the Sunrise sect. The 3 big sects had already noticed the power scale changing in the continent, and sooner or later, one of them would make a move to stop the Sunrise sect from swallowing the small sects and become one major power that could rival them in every aspect. Chapter 462 Holy Matrimony. Michael and Gaia were standing in Professor Lane's office. The office was a gloomy and dimly lit room located adjacent to the alchemy classroom. The shadowy walls were lined with shelves of large glass jars filled with slimy, revolting things, such as bits of animals and plants, floating in potions and pills of varying colors. Michael noticed there were more jars in the office than in the classroom. The office had a fireplace. In a corner, there was a cupboard containing Lane's private stock of alchemy ingredients. Professor Lane was examining the tiny dot of dark flames hovering above Michael's pinky finger. This is not the hell's flame. Is this even a primordial flame? Professor Lane's waspish voice sounded shocked. What do you mean? We risked our fucking lives in that dungeon. Gaia stomped the wooden floor beneath her feet. Ignoring Gaia's temper tantrum, Professor Lane brought a 6-foot mirror to Michael, touched the mirror with the flames. Professor Lane covered himself with his dark robes while Gaia took several steps back from Michael. The already gloomy room grew darker as he conjured a ball of dark flames over his right hand. Despite the arrays placed in the office, Lane could feel his soul aching. It was as though the heat coming from the flames burning his soul itself. Michael covered his palm with the dark flames and touched the mirror. Boom! The mirror suddenly exploded into a million pieces and the shards evaporated into nothingness before they could even hit the ground. Is this supposed to happen? Michael asked as the system began to offer him thousands of badass points. For a moment, Michael noticed Lane's eyes open wide. No, it's not. This flame is much more powerful than any other primordial flames, Lane said in a gravely serious voice. Michael already knew this, yet he pretended to be surprised. Quickly, Professor Lane made his way to the rack where he lined up all his personal collection of pills and potions. He rummaged through the collection to pull out an emerald green box. This pill will disguise the flame as the hell flame. Take it. Lane handed over the small box to Michael. Michael was curious to see what was inside, though he could sense powerful radiation coming from within. He then slowly opened the box and saw a purple pill resting on a red cloth like a wedding ring. Because Michael absorbed a primordial flame, he could sense another primordial flame, and he sensed the energy of a primordial flame within the pill. However, it seemed as if Professor Lane used a sliver of primordial energy as an ingredient to concoct this pill. Before taking the pill, however, Michael looked at Professor Lane with a gentle smile on his face. Why help me, Professor? No offense, but you don't seem like the friendly helping professor type. You might only be someone worthy of my teachings, Professor Lane simply said. Since Michael had a plan of his own, he did not poke Lane any further. Meanwhile, in their room, Victoria and Edith placed the glass orb that enabled communication from the Oculun realm to Thusia. Victoria placed her hand on the orb and sent a sliver of cosmic energy as the glass orb immediately began to glow brighter and brighter. Victoria and Edith took several steps back. Soon, 2 figures in ethereal form appeared above the orb. The man was in a crimson-red robe that draped the floor beneath him. He had striking crimson-red hair dancing over his shoulder, blue eyes, and a thick beard without a mustache. His muscles were bulging out of his crimson-red robes. The man possessed an aura of an emperor and not of a kind benevolent emperor, rather he seemed cold, iron-fisted, and powerful as a god. The woman who remained by his side had golden hair, a gentle smile on her face as well as a pair of glistening hazel eyes. Her perfect structure was covered by a long gown usually made of a luxurious tunic and contained embroidered lace and gems. Father, Mother, Victoria immediately dropped to one knee and bowed her head. Your Majesty, Your Highness, Edith curtsied them with a royal bow instead of kneeling down like Victoria. They were the King and Queen of Thusia, Maxim Barnes and Valeria Barnes. Valeria looked at Victoria with a kind look and she was about to speak when a cold voice reverberated in the room. Unacceptable, Maxim Barnes' voice conveyed authority. The voice emanated from his 6'6" stature commands attention. It was unmistakable. At its most pronounced it felt like a whip against dewy skin. You have failed to secure the primordial flames. What have you learned from your failure, Victoria? Raise your head and answer. Victoria shuddered like a child in front of him. The primordial flames indeed have a mind of their own, father. They refuse to submit to the cosmic energy and one of them has chosen a new master. One of them? Frowned Maxim Barnes. Yes, father, there were 2 primordial flames. Fool. King Maxim raised his voice. He was furious. Along with his shout, a powerful blast shot out of his ethereal figure and blasted Victoria onto the wall behind her. Vicky. Edith was stunned, but she quickly ran to Victoria. No, Victoria refused to take Edith's hands and picked herself from the ground without any help. Knowing about her husband's anger, Valeria remained silent. She did not even try to calm him down because she knew it would only make him madder. Victoria ignored the blood slowly trickling through her nostrils and knelt before him just like before. Only the 3 primordial flames can stop the cosmic energy. What does that mean? Asked Maxim Barnes. Visit Rietal. Me for extra chapters. Our enemies can use the primordial flames against us, Victoria immediately answered Maxim without even taking a second to breathe. They will use the flames against us. That is why we must secure them for ourselves before our foes. Each failure teaches us a lesson. Learn from your failures. Yes, sir. Victoria placed her hand on her chest and declared, Have you found someone worthy of you in Mazeroth? Asked Maxim. No, father. She shook her head. Maxim looked at Victoria for a moment and then disappeared, leaving Valeria with the 2 girls. Edith finally let out a deep breath and felt her muscles loosen up. Rise, my daughter, Valeria's gentle voice swept over Victoria. There was nothing but love and kindness in her eyes. She looked and acted like the embodiment of compassion. Victoria stood up, revealing a delicate smile. Your father and I have picked 2 young men who might be worthy to take your hands in marriage, Victoria. If you have no one in your heart, you can select either of them and you won't be disappointed, mother, Victoria growled. I don't want to get married. No, dear, marriage is important. To you and to our kingdom. Your father has given you the freedom to pick a groom for yourself. He has been very patient in this matter, but you know about your father. He is not a patient man. Victoria could only sigh. To be honest, she did not want to marry, but she was unable to disagree with her father too. She had been telling them she will find a man who is worthy of her, yet she barely even tried to. But how could I marry someone I don't even know? Every man I met till now is weaker and inferior to me in every aspect. I married your father without knowing him, honey, and that's the best decision I've ever made. You can't keep avoiding this matter, saying they are weak and inferior to you. No one can or will be stronger than you, Victoria. You have the cosmic energy running in your veins. I think the young men we found might be the best fit for you. They are stronger than you, but they are not weak either. If they had cosmic energy, I have no doubt they will be just as strong as you or stronger. Victoria was momentarily stunned by the last few words that came out of her mother's mouth. She creased her brows, refusing to believe that not 1 but 2 men existed who could be stronger than her. Granted, she had cosmic energy, but even before absorbing cosmic energy, her cultivation speed and the purity of the energy in her body shook the entire Azer continent. She was deemed a once-in-lifetime prodigy, and many even compared her to the Hunt family prodigy. Who are they? Edith's curiosity got the better of her. Both of them hail from the Elon continent. One of them is a guardian. Our contacts in the Guardian Guild have informed us he is a rising star with unlimited potential. They believe he has reached core formation stage level 10 recently. As Queen Valeria was describing the candidate, Edith's heart started to beat faster and faster. It felt as if her heart was pounding against her chest. He is kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. General Booth has accessed the battles he went through and said he could fight with him toe to toe and might even defeat him in a duel. Valeria intentionally teased Victoria without revealing the identity of the young man. She kindled the fire of curiosity within Victoria and rubbed her ego to the point Victoria would travel to Elon to meet both young men and pick one to be her life partner. Who does this remind you of? Valeria chuckled. You, said Victoria. When someone wanted to describe Valeria with few words as possible, they would say the exact thing Valeria said about the young man: kind, forgiving, and talented in both alchemy and combat. Valeria failed to notice a tear rolling out of Edith's eyes. Do you want to know his name? Valeria teased Victoria. The young girl nodded her head wordlessly, telling her mother to stop teasing her and reveal his name. Noah Winston. Edith's tears hit the ground as soon as Valeria uttered the name of the man whom Edith was in love with. Chapter 463. Victoria chooses her groom. Not only Edith but also Victoria was stunned to hear the name Noah Winston. Victoria was caught off guard as she did not think the young man her mother was talking about could be the same guy Edith is in love with. Her eyes automatically turned to look at Edith and saw the tears gushing out of her eyes. Victoria waved her hand, sending a sliver of cosmic energy to the orb. Right after the cosmic energy reached the orb, Valeria's figure vanished into thin air and the orb lost its glow. As soon as Valeria disappeared, Edith collapsed down. She closed her face with her hands and started to cry. Edith, Victoria knelt beside her best friend, wrapped her arms around her shoulder, and pulled her close to her. "I don't know what to do," Edith sobbed as her voice stuttered. Hey, you don't have to do anything." "Stop crying," Victoria tried to console her. She wasn't in her usual cold self. How could she when her best friend was crying for the first time in many years? Edith sobbed continuously for 15 minutes, and no matter what Victoria tried to say or do, she could not stop Edith from crying. "It's okay," Edith opened her hands, revealing puffy red eyes and a pale face. She quickly wiped off the tears and tried to let out a smile. "I'm used to not having things I love. You can have him, he will take good care of you. He's really a good guy." Surprisingly, Victoria slapped the back of Edith's head. "You dumb silly, who said I'm going to choose Noah? No offense, but I'm not going to share my husband with you or anyone." Looking at Edith's dumbstruck face, Victoria sighed before smiling. "Mother said 2 candidates, idiot. If I have to choose one, I will choose the other one. I bet mine is better than yours," she joked to make Edith truly smile again instead of the fake one on her face at the moment. "But if Victoria closer her lips with her hands, if I agree to marry someone else, I don't have to marry your loverboy." Edith was saying something, but due to Victoria's hand on her mouth, her words became inaudible. Victoria removed her hand as Edith stared at her with watering eyes. "You would do that for me?" Once again Victoria slapped Edith on the head. "Idiot, I would do anything for you. Don't you know?" Before Victoria could finish her sentence, Edith leaped at her, hugged her, and squeezed Victoria. "How dare you think I will join his harem, huh?" Victoria asked playfully. "He said he will treat all of us equally. If you enter the harem, it's goodbye equality." "You will kick us out," Edith purred. "That does sound like me." Victoria chuckled as the two girls remained in each other's embrace for a couple of minutes. Then only Victoria remembered that she put her mother on the hold. "Mother is still waiting." "Oh," Edith almost squealed when she remembered about Valeria. She quickly let go of Victoria, stood up, and fixed her face and her dress. Just like before, Victoria sent a sliver of cosmic energy to activate the orb. "Everything okay, dear?" Valeria's figure appeared in the room and asked. "Yes, Mother. Someone came to meet us suddenly." "Ah," Valeria pouted. "I thought you cut the connection because you were shy." Victoria couldn't help rolling her eyes. "Mom, have you met me?" "Teach your friend to be shy, Edith. She will need it." Valeria turned her gaze towards Edith. "I have a better chance of teaching a cow to bark." Auntie. Valeria burst into laughter, and so did Edith, who felt lighthearted after Victoria promised not to take Noah from her. Surprisingly, Victoria too chuckled with them. "Now if you finished making fun of me, tell me about the other one, Mom." Valeria was surprised by Victoria's sudden interest in knowing the brides. Before this, Victoria would either ignore her or leave the room if she opened the topic of marriage. Valeria wasn't going to waste this moment by pondering why the sudden interest. "The second guy is more of your father's choice. He is rather what the right word." Valeria rubbed her chin for a moment, searching for the right word in her mind. "Insensitive," she said, and continued, "not forgiving as Noah and sometimes ruthless. He is not a noble like Noah, and our spies fail to find any solid information about his origins. However, your father doesn't seem to care about his origins because of what this young man has achieved by himself in a short amount of time." When Valeria was talking about Noah, she had a bright smile on her face. That smile was nowhere to be found on her face now. He went from foundation stage to core formation stage level 10 within a year. You won't believe how he became a king. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. Valeria began to narrate everything from the beginning to Victoria except one thing, which she kept to herself to surprise Victoria. At the end of the story, Edith was horrified and began to sweat thinking about what would happen if Victoria married this guy. Victoria, on the other hand, was amazed by him. He seemed to have everything Victoria wanted in her life partner. In addition, he also earned Victoria's respect. "Who is he?" asked Victoria. "We know him, dear. You may have even met him." Valeria surprised her daughter. As a mother, she preferred Noah for her daughter, but as a queen, she picked the second youngster. However, she was worried that if Victoria chose the second one, there won't be a place for kindness. Victoria wasn't exactly a kind, compassionate ruler like herself. Thus, Valeria wanted Victoria's husband to be the kind and compassionate one when ruling over Thusia. Noah seemed to be that man, not the second one. She expressed her feelings about him to Maxim, but as a ruthless king, he was leaning toward the second one rather than choosing Noah. The ultimate decision of choosing the future king of Thusia fell to Victoria. Whatever decision her daughter would make, she would wholeheartedly agree and support her, although she would be over the moon if she was to choose Noah. "Do you know the leader of our alchemy guild, the one Calvin chose?" Valeria asked as Victoria began to recall everything released to the alchemy guild. She was in seclusion when they formed an alchemy guild of their own. Everything related to talent recruitment had been taken care of by Calvin, and because he was competent, Maxim rarely micromanaged Calvin. Besides, they were at war with several kingdoms, so they had no time to access every talent brought by Calvin. Nonetheless, Victoria did hear Calvin talk about recruiting a 5-star alchemist as their guild leader and planned to topple the alchemist guild. He goes by the name Ghost. Apparently, he was also chosen by Mazroth at the same time as U2. The moment Valeria said this, the images of the youngster Victoria met in the Black Forest flashed across her mind. "That's him," Victoria mumbled under her breath. Everything made perfect sense to Victoria, and her instincts told her the same. "Auntie, I think we've met him already," Edith sighed. Just like Victoria, she connected the dots and guessed her trained neighbor and Ghost may be the same person. Edith began to tell what happened in the Black Forest and how the alchemy student mercilessly beat down the warriors to Valeria. "That does sound like him." After knowing what he did to the Princess of Bredia and the fellow competitors during the tournament, Valeria wasn't surprised by what Edith told her. As far as she was concerned, the warrior students were lucky they met him in Mazroth instead of in Elon, where Ghost would have slaughtered them like cattle. "Since you didn't find one yourself, these two are the choices you have, dear." "I would choose Valeria tried to persuade Victoria to choose Noah, only to get interrupted by Victoria. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that Valeria preferred Noah over Ghost, and Victoria could read her mother like a book. At first, Victoria only wanted to choose the other one instead of Noah because of Edith. But after hearing everything about Ghost, she really felt like he might be the man she hoped to be her life partner. "I will meet Ghost." Valeria was disappointed deep down, but still, she was happy that at least Victoria agreed to meet him. "After I finish my studies in Mazroth and hopefully find the primordial flame, I can meet him." Both mother and daughter failed to consider Ghost's opinion on the matter, even after knowing that he already rejected marrying a princess. And last time a king thought about marrying his daughter to him, he ended up not only losing a huge chunk of his kingdom but also almost his daughter. Moreover, they had no idea that he was once their victim. They literally killed him and everyone he loved. Mazzaroth's training ground was where mostly the students of warrior houses would train their spellcasting and close combat skills. The grounds were flat, shortcut grassy areas and were located near the herbal garden. It was overlooked by the training grounds tower and the arena. The training grounds had countless dummies enhanced to function as sentient beings for the students to simulate a real battle. Each student who wants to train had to take a silver card from the counter located at the entrance. Only through this card, a student could change the difficulty and select what type of training they want. The students could change the difficulty or select a training by establishing a connection with the card. Training grounds had a giant invisible array to enable the students to use a portion of the cultivation power. At the moment, all the students on the training ground stood aside and watched Michael break hundreds of dummies piece by piece. He was honing his close combat skills and sword skills. Since he sought badass points to settle the debt to the system and to buy some items from the store, he practiced in front of the students. More than the students were surprised by his skills, it was his emerald green robes that shocked them. They couldn't believe an alchemy student possessed such astounding battle skills. Among the onlookers was a minion of Elliot's close friend. He was watching Michael with the intention to let his leader know about him. Michael had a plan to pick a fight with the warrior students, beat the hell out of them, farm badass points, and get the hell out of Mazroth in 18 months. Unlike outside, they wouldn't know his identity, so he had no need to worry about making enemies. His plan, however, started to work sooner than he expected. Chapter 464. Picking up a fight. The warriors' common room was located in the dungeon a couple of floors beneath the combat classroom. It was a long, low underground room with rough stone walls and ceiling, from which round, reddish lamps were hanging on chains, giving the light in the room a red and silver tinge. A fire was crackling under an elaborately carved mantelpiece ahead of them, and several figures were silhouetted around it in carved chairs. The common room had lots of low-backed black and dark red button-tufted, leather sofas, skulls, and dark wood cupboards. One of the wooden tables had a few daggers and scrolls on it. The walls were decorated with tapestries featuring the adventures of famous warriors ever to live. It had quite a grand atmosphere, but also quite a cold one. Currently, 5 students were occupying the sofas set in the middle of the room and discussing something. One of the 3 men sitting on the sofa was Elliot Watson, the head prefect of Maze Roth and the man who got Gaia fired. He was not in his silver armor and carrying the heavy sword. He was wearing a linen black full-sleeved shirt, black trousers, and a pair of silver boots. On the opposite side of Elliot, on a couple's sofa, Elliot's best friends and also lovers, Deacon Saunders and Bethany White, were cuddling. Deacon flaunted his chiseled muscular upper body and his raven black long hair. The calluses and veins bulging out of his tanned skin were common among the blacksmiths like him. Bethany White had striking red hair, an oval face, and shining blue eyes. She was Deacon's fiancée and also a 4-star runemaster as well as the heiress to the powerful White family in the Azer continent. While Deacon and Bethany were entangled in cuddling and smooching, a blonde girl in a loosely tied ponytail was making tea for everyone in the room. She would remind someone of Alicia as the girl looked cold, unsympathetic, and not at all friendly. The 5th person in the room was Diego Carter, a messy purple-haired young man wearing skinny black leather trousers and a rainbow-colored sparkling jacket. Out of the 5, he was the only one standing in the corner of the room, watching them with a tinge of jealousy painted on his face. His eyes particularly focused on Bethany while his hands were rubbing his crotch. He quickly took his hand off of his crotch when one of his minions entered the room. Oh, the minion was surprised to see the head prefect in the room. "Hey, Elliot," the minion stuttered. His eyes were desperately searching for Diego until they landed on Diego. "Boss, you have to see what's going on in the training grounds." The minion tried to lower his voice but all of them heard him. "What?" Diego rolled his eyes. He was quite annoyed by his minion's untimely entrance. "There's an alchemist showing off by breaking the dummies, so?" Diego once again rolled his eyes. The dummies were put to hardest difficulty. As soon as the minion said this, everyone turned their gazes at him. Deacon and Bethany stopped smooching, Erica halted brewing the tea and Elliot adjusted his spectacles. "Are you fucking with me right now?" Diego bore his teeth like a mad dog, which made the minion take a step back. "Of course not. He's still at it. You can _find the rest of this content on the L World .com platform. Did I hear you correctly? Is he destroying the dummies which were put on the hardest difficulty, or is he getting his ass kicked by the dummies?" The minion frowned. He was sick of Diego and his attitude. Only because being a friend of Elliot's friend had some advantages in Maze Roth, he would have stopped putting up Diego's shit a long time ago. "Yeah, stupid deaf motherfucker, he is the one kicking ass." The minion wanted to speak these words. "He is destroying the dummies. Until I was there, he didn't even get a cut from the dummies." Unfortunately, he could only speak these words. "That's really surprising." Deacon spoke in a thick voice. "Bullshit," Diego rebuked. "When was the last time some tried the hardest difficulty dummies and left the place unscathed? Especially lowly alchemists who can't even fight a wild boar." Diego grabbed the minion's collars. "They are not inferior to us, Diego." Elliot's deep voice made Diego let go of the minion's collars. "If anything, they are superior to us." Elliot stood up, walked to the minion, and fixed his robes. With training, an alchemist or a runemaster or a blacksmith can become a fearsome warrior. Each word escaped his mouth clear and sounded like a bell chiming loudly. "Like Deacon here." Elliot looked at Deacon and continued, "But if history has taught us something, not a single student of Warrior House specialized in a rune mastery, alchemy, or smithing." As he was talking, he went to Erica and took the cup of tea. "To be a warrior, one must respect another. Respect is earned, Elliot, not asked." Diego rebuked once again. Elliot just smiled at his snarky comment. "Yes, respect is earned, but you have to give respect to get respect." Diego gritted his teeth. full_our new episode on the L World COM platform. Why are we even talking about this? What if an alchemist is beating the dummies? Deacon did it, Elliot did it, and for God's sake, you did it so many times. Bethany tried to defuse the situation as usual. They all knew Diego was jealous of Elliot and hated him for his strict principles. If it was someone else, they would have thrown off Diego like a piece of trash, but not Elliot. He always tried to teach Diego better no matter how many times Diego failed him. Don't put me and a lowly alchemist dog on the same level. Diego snickered, raising his voice at Bethany. Deacon did not like the way he talked to Bethany, but before he could say something, Erica interjected. You are overreacting, Diego. Her words were like pouring fuel into the burning fire. And you? Erica's cold gaze landed on the minion. He shuddered to look at her sharp gaze. Get out of here, you've done enough. The minion immediately ran away from the room. Can we go back to what we were doing, baby? Deacon said, kissing her neck. Seeing the girl he loves cuddling and smooching in front of him with the guy he hates the most made Diego's blood pressure soar through the roof. Ever since Deacon and Bethany got engaged, Diego lost it. Elliot knew that Diego was in love with Bethany since they were little. However, Bethany chose Deacon and Diego asked Elliot to break off their engagement only to be denied by Elliot. Not only did Elliot refuse to help Diego but also told him to move on. I will show you overreact, Diego growled before storming out of the room. For Diego, who craved Bethany's attention, anger was the only thing that earned him her attention. Hence, he voluntarily picked up fights with fellow students. Elliot was widely respected by the students of all houses, and only because Diego was his friend, many did not complain about his behavior to headmistress Kayla. Bethany was unable to continue smooching when her friend walked out of the room furiously. She stood up to follow him behind, and so did Deacon. After the three of them left the room, leaving Elliot and Erica behind, she came to his side. How long you gonna put up with him, Elliot? Asked Erica, putting her hand on Elliot's shoulder. Until he sees the errors in his ways, he said as he walked towards his room to wear his uniform. I don't think it's time sooner, she said with a cold face. Love is a powerful force, Erica. It can bring out the best or worst version of oneself. In Diego's case, it's the latter. Oh boy, you are really good at this. Michael was ripping the arms off a dummy when he saw Gilrine descend from the sky beside him. Michael momentarily paused the training to greet the big man. They are just too weak, Michael calmly said, and rubbed the blood on his knuckles on his robes. The latest _AP_SODIES are on the L World COM website. Gilrine was stunned. Somehow Michael's words didn't look like boasting. After all, Gilrine could see the mountain of dummies lying on the ground nearby. You finished training? For now, I am waiting for someone. Gilrine saw a light grin emerge on his face. He looked around to see only students gawking at him, bewildered. The big man noticed several girls staring at him with blushed red faces. He could tell they were undressing him in their minds. Even the elven girls couldn't take their eyes off of him. Strength, power, and skill surpassed the racial thing. The students didn't resume training even after Michael finished his training. At least, they thought he finished training. Just when they thought the show was over, they saw Diego arriving at the training ground, pushing the students onto the ground who stood in his way. Here comes trouble, Gilrine, who was familiar with Diego's behavior, mumbled under his breath. Finally, Michael was delighted inside. The intel Gaia gave him paid off as he expected. The troublemaker friend of Elliot had come to pick a fight with him at last. Sometimes he surprised himself when he could manipulate these people so effortlessly. He hated fights with cringe young masters like Diego. Still, the need for badass points pushed him to pick a fight with them. Michael's eyes of darkness enabled him to see through Diego's cultivation level. To be honest, Michael was disappointed to see his core strengthening stage 1 cultivation. So even if Diego was to use arch energy, Michael could mop the floor with him without breaking a sweat. Besides, his purple hair and the sparkling jacket almost made Michael burst into laughter. Diego resembled a clown, and it was so funny to see a clown looking at him with murderous intent in his eyes. Do you want to get out of here and have a mug of ale? Gilrine asked Michael, hand over your training ground card, Diego ordered Michael. The students immediately became excited. They could sense the tension and wanted to witness Michael fight with a warrior instead of dummies. That way they could determine whether he had real battle skills or not. I am not finished yet, go back to your counter. Michael pretended not to know Diego and treated him like a servant. Gilrine almost spat out to see Michael shooing him away like a puppy. Diego's anger exploded within him. As Michael turned his back on Diego, he growled, "Don't you know who I am?" Michael ignored him as though he did not hear Diego. He was intentionally pissing off Diego for amusement. "I am talking, you asshole." Diego walked towards him, bridging the gap between the two. Visit to elworld.com discover_new novels. Why don't we all take a deep breath, huh? Gilrine tried to defuse the situation even though he could tell there is no reasoning with Diego. Chapter 465 Sudden Duel. Those who were studying in Maze Roth since they were little knew about Diego's latest change in behavior and expected trouble. Those who didn't, however, curiously stared at the scene to see what was going to unfold. Diego couldn't believe a newbie was ignoring him completely. Great insult. The rule of no duel between students prevented Diego from venting his anger on the alchemist. The giggles and chuckles reaching his ears fanned the flames of his anger. Once again, Diego menacingly bore his teeth at Michael. "I challenge you to a duel," Diego exclaimed, pointing at Michael. Still, Diego's challenge was unable to draw Michael's full attention. Being ignored in front of all the students as well as his crush did not go well with Diego. If it wasn't for the rule, Diego would have already cast a spell and initiated the battle. His eyes began to twitch along with his cheeks, in overwhelming anger brewing inside. On the other hand, Michael resumed the training as several dummies materialized before him to fight. "Go play with someone else," Michael talked to Diego as though he was talking to a child. Plus, he sounded slightly annoyed by Diego, which made some giggle. "Good, at least now I know your pathetic skills are limited to dummies." "Dummy," Diego snickered as he shot out a bullet of spit onto the ground. He meant it as a sign of hostility, yet Michael remained uncaring. Diego's anger was soaring through the roof. While the tension between Michael and Diego was gradually rising, the combat Professor Steinmeier made an appearance. She gracefully descended from the sky. "What's going on here?" asked Gaia with a frown, looking back and forth at Michael and Diego. When her piercing gaze landed on Diego, her frown darkened. "The source of this _chapter, Elworld." The students became stiff in front of her. Although Diego was on the verge of losing his mind, he was still not crazy enough not to give the respect a professor deserved. Professor Steinmeier, even Gilrine, took the position of standing at ease as though he was a soldier and she was his general. "Professor, I want to challenge him for a duel," Diego said with gritted teeth. Gaia could literally hear his teeth gnashing against each other. She could have simply said yes as per the plan, but she turned to look at the pile of dummies for a moment. "I assume you did this?" she asked Michael, pretending not to know. Michael responded with a simple nod as she turned her gaze back to Diego. "Let me be clear, you want to have a duel with an alchemist?" The students could hear the amusement in her voice. "If he's not a chicken," Diego growled. He had absolute confidence in his ability. He was after all a prodigy who has yet to lose a duel. With or without arch energy, he would win, at least he thought like that. After hearing Diego, she almost burst into laughter. She trained Michael in Serpent Mega, one of the deadliest combat styles in the world, and recently, she was having a hard time coping with him. She rarely landed a punch or kick on him. Yet, the clown-looking kid was asking Michael for a duel without having any idea of his skills. The funny thing was Diego had the chance to back off after witnessing what he did to the hardest difficulty dummies, which could give a battle-hardened core-strengthening stage warrior a run of their money. "I will allow it under one condition." Gaia gracefully walked toward Diego with her hands behind her back. "No spells, no runic armaments. Visit Elworld.com for a better reading experience." Diego snicked, showing his confidence. "It's not fair," Michael calmly spoke. The students quickly started to speculate and guessed he was trying to back off. Branding him as a coward and a show-off was easier to accept than the fact an alchemist was better than them in terms of combat skills. Don't say you're having cold feet. Diego revealed a menacing grin onto to be shocked by Michael once again. It's not fair for you. You would have had a tiny chance of making me break a sweat. His words contained arrogance, dominance and confidence. For most of the students he looked extremely arrogant, but for Gilrine, something told him that he had the means to back his words. Of course, in Gilrine's entire life, he had never seen an alchemist battle a warrior student and win. Still, Gilrine believed that life was full of surprises. Clear the area, her voice sounded throughout the training ground like a thunderclap. For a few moments, the students stared at her with bewildered faces. None of them expected the duel would happen then and there. It only took the students a couple of minutes to back away from where they were initially standing. Soon, the students formed a circle, and Gilrine, Michael, Gaia, and Diego remained in the circle. In the excitement to see a sudden duel, the students failed to notice Elliot, Bethany, Deacon, and Erica joining them. They stood at last as they would rather not attract any attention to them. Besides, except Elliot, the others couldn't believe in the alchemist. Elliot looked into the eyes of Michael and saw a battle-hardened warrior. In the face of a challenge, his face showed no agitation or uneasiness. He was calm, collected, and focused, which Diego lacked. I hope you have better skills in combat than you have in fashion. Hearing Gaia's words, some students couldn't hold back their laughter. They just burst into laughter, further fanning the anger flame of Diego. She ascended to the sky to oversee the duel as a professor should. Gilrine also joined her in the air as Diego removed his sparkling jacket and threw it on the ground. Standing on the opposite side, Michael did nothing. He didn't even roll the sleeves up but waited for Diego to make his move. I don't have all day, Michael calmly uttered these words, finally making Diego dash at him. The closer Diego got, the more excited everyone became. Many students could be seen entering the training grounds in a rush to see the commotion, but they never expected to see a duel between an alchemist and a warrior. For more _novel, visit Elworld. Immediately the newcomers deemed Michael as the loser when they saw his green robes. Even the alchemists cursed at him for challenging a warrior. Outside of the Aquilon realm, the alchemists enjoyed fame, wealth, and stardom. However, in Maze-Roth, they were treated as low class. Part of the reason was that alchemy students failed to come up with new potions and pills to wow everyone for a couple of 100 years, while the other students invented new battle skills, runes, and forged powerful weapons. There was also the reason that compared to the other students, Alchemy House contained more subpar talents. They might be prodigies outside, but here, they were considered subpar. Coupled with Professor Lane's cold treatment and constant ridicule, the House of Alchemy had long lost its former glory. When Diego was just arm's reach from Michael, he threw his fist at Michael. Despite Diego's look, his punch was extremely fast and contained enough force to dislocate the jawbone. Just as the fist was a few inches away from his face, Michael easily evaded the punch. Diego was surprised by his speed, yet he quickly threw a punch aiming at Michael's guts. This time was no different than the previous one, as Michael comfortably and very easily evaded the punch by just taking a step sidewards. The veins were popping out of Diego's pale skin. He was too mad. Michael, however, grinned inside, bathing himself in badass points. The constant sound of notifications ringing in his head was exhilarating for him. Deacon, Bethany, and Erica, who had witnessed Diego fight before, were completely caught off guard by Michael's reflection and speed. They had not battled Diego personally, but they saw Elliot and Diego train together. In their training, Diego would almost fight head-to-head with Elliot. Their battle would go for hours before always ending up in a draw. The trio very well knew that Elliot was holding back in the duel, so Diego would train harder and harder to win him. Meanwhile, Diego's movements evolved to be faster and faster, to the point many students had a hard time believing they were fighting without using arch energy. Each and every punch and kick Diego threw at him was precise, deadly, and elegant, which revealed the fact that Diego was taught a powerful, deadly close combat technique. If Diego fought someone else, he would have easily won. His bad luck, he met Michael, who reached 98% mastery in Serpent Mega. The normal version of Serpent Mega was deadly enough to be ranked as one of the deadliest close combat techniques. After the changes made to the technique by Michael, it evolved into something far more deadlier than any technique in the world. Because of that, no matter how fast or quickly Diego moved, Michael dodged without breaking a sweat. For Michael, it almost felt like watching a slow-motion movie. He could predict Diego's moves before even he could make them. The battle showered him with almost 30,000 badass points within a few more minutes. Since the rain of badass points was showering him with points, he decided to drag the fight a few more minutes to maximize his earnings. Arg, Diego growled as he felt more and more annoyed by the fact that he has yet to land a blow on him. Almost all the students stared at the fight with their mouths slightly opened. They were completely stunned by Michael. Right at that moment, Edith and Victoria rushed into the training grounds to see the duel. "You're right, it is him." The moment Edith saw Michael, she was surprised. She couldn't believe Victoria was right to tell her that it was Ghost who was the alchemist who pissed off a warrior. Victoria and Edith squeezed through the crowd to reach the front so they could get a better view of the battle. "If this is the best you can do, maybe you're in the wrong house." While evading Diego's punches, Michael uttered these words. They were not loud but loud enough to reach the ears of every single student. Visit L-World. .com for a better reading experience, son of a bitch. Diego raged after hearing those words. Bethany was watching the battle and the thought of him getting played by an alchemist in front of her stabbed straight through his ego and pride. Unfortunately, he failed to comprehend that Michael was just getting started. Chapter 466 Becoming a Student Again. The duel was going on for 15 minutes without either of them landing a blow on the other. As the minutes passed by, Diego gradually started to lose his stamina and breathed heavily. Tiredness was visible on his face and his moves. His fighting technique became more chaotic and less finesse. It was logical, any fighter who couldn't touch his opponent would lose their mind and become somewhat of a wild fighter. Finally, Michael started to feel bored of evading the punches and kicks. He noticed the fall in badass points, so he decided to spice up the fight. "You really think less of alchemists, right?" Michael questioned Diego while simply evading another one of Diego's punches. He made dodging punches look so much easier. When your jaw is dislocated, a millisecond after these words reached everyone's ears, they saw Michael grab Diego's fist. Diego quickly used his other hand and tried to punch Michael only to get caught by him once again. Bang! Holding Diego's two fists, Michael headbutted him with enough force to dislocate his jaw as said. The jawbone let out a crackling sound. "Ribs are broken." Michael pulled Diego closer without even giving Diego any time to scream in pain. Following the headbutt, Michael sent his knee to Diego's ribcage. Grr! Diego growled, immediately coughing out dark blood. "Nose broken." Michael bent him down before sending his knee to Diego's nose. The crunching sound emanated from Diego's face. Ouch! Gilrine couldn't help raising his brows. At this point, Diego's body almost gave up. His ribs were broken, his jaw was dislocated and blood was gushing out of his broken nose. Diego's vision blurred. It took everything in him to stand on his feet. His body and mind screamed at him to give up, and the only thing that prevented him from giving up was Bethany, who was watching the duel horrified. Even Deacon, who had no good things to say about Diego, somewhat felt pity for him. Some students thought the duel went far enough and wanted the professor to intervene, only to see Professor Steinmeier enjoying the brutal fight with cookies. "You want some?" asked Gaia, looking at Gilrine. In normal situations, Gilrine would have taken the delicious buttery cookies in her hand. Considering it was not the case and shocked to see a professor act so cool instead of putting an end to the duel, he had no appetite. In fact, he lost his appetite for the ale he wanted to drink afterward. "Professor, shouldn't you stop the duel?" meekly asked Gilrine, suffering from severe concussion. The students noticed Michael finally let go of Diego and wondered what he was going to do next. After hearing what he just said, they started to have some ideas. At this moment, Diego was breathing heavily, drooling blood. One single 540 kick, that was all it took to knock the light out of Diego. The kick was elegant, fast, and powerful. The kick literally sent Diego flying for a few meters before he crashed onto the ground. You will need an alchemist and a healing potion." His voice was crystal clear. It was a statement directed to every single student who thought less of alchemy and alchemists. Even though Michael planned to specialize in every single specialization there was, he had a special place for alchemy in his heart. After all, alchemy was his first specialization, and the first things would always take a special place in people's hearts. After everything was said and done, Michael adjusted his collars. A duel with a bully like Diego may have been cringe, yet it earned him enough points to settle the debt to the system. "Now I can stop the duel," stuffing the last cookie in her mouth, she informed Gilrine. Then, she slowly descended near Diego. Bethany was standing in the front waiting for Gaia to conclude the battle. Pathetic, Gaia disappointedly shook her head looking at Diego's unconscious body. "This is what reality looks like, students, except he would have been dead right now." Before concluding the battle, she spoke to the students around her. "You all take so much pride in being a warrior. But let me tell you something, out there, in the real world, you're just another young master and young miss. If you value your lives, I'd recommend you not to piss off any real warrior." She emphasized the word real warrior to shame the rest of them. To be honest, the students couldn't rebuke. Many knew that if they went against Diego, they would have lost the battle with or without Arch energy. Her words formed a crack in their pride and ego. "He wins," Gaia simply pointed at Michael and said. Then she poked Diego with her toe, "and take him away." As soon as Gaia said this, Bethany rushed to Diego and placed his head on her lap. She gently opened his lips, pouring the healing potion into his mouth. Case in point, the smile that emerged on Michael's face made some alchemists proud, while almost all the warriors hated him and saw the smile as a snicker. Michael couldn't care less about the students' opinions of him. As far as he was concerned, this day was extremely fruitful. He trained, earned badass points, lured an arrogant asshole into his trap, earned badass points, beat the crap out of him, and earned badass points. He walked away from the training grounds like nothing happened, leaving the crowd stunned. Victoria wasn't impressed by the result of the fight because she knew Diego had no chance against Ghost. However, she liked the fact that Ghost did not take any crap from Diego. He was ruthless, humiliated his opponent to leave a permanent scar, thus breaking the opponent's spirit, and left the area like a badass instead of showing off and boasting. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. What he just witnessed really made Elliot question whether he did the right thing or not by getting Professor Steinmeier fired. To be honest, he never expected Diego to be completely trashed by the alchemist student. Diego should have at least put up a decent fight, yet what happened was the complete opposite. Elliot wondered where the alchemist student hailed from and who was his mentor. What he displayed wasn't enough for anyone to fully comprehend or figure out what kind of fighting technique he mastered. Elliot, however, was able to tell that it was an extremely powerful and deadly fighting technique. The following days were pretty much uneventful. As one would expect, all the warrior students viewed Michael as their number one enemy, while some alchemists tried to be his friend. Some students went another step and asked Michael to marry them. Michael politely refused their proposals. Those who asked to be his friend, however, received that blessing. He would refuse marriage proposals but not friendships. Connections were just as important as gold coins. Michael knew this. To summarize, Michael made quite a lot of friends in the alchemy house, and through Ellider, he also made connections with rune masters, though he failed to make any friends from the house of blacksmiths. In a blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. During these 2 months, Gaia continued teaching the students the art of combat. Everything was just a pretense to keep her job and make her look like a great professor. The last thing she would do is teach her potential enemies to be stronger. Nightmare reached the core formation level 8 from level 5. In addition, he also learned a few battle tactics from Gilrine and the magical beasts professor. Meanwhile, Michael spent almost all of his time in the alchemy classroom with Professor Lane. During the classes, Professor Lane almost ignored the others and took a special interest in Michael. Professor Lane would often give the other students the task of concocting a pill or brewing a potion, while giving Michael the toughest assignments, which Michael did with ease. The other students were jealous, but they would rather be ignored by Professor Lane than spend their time with him like Michael. Right at the moment, Michael and Lane were alone in the alchemy classroom as usual. They lost track of time and failed to notice the hour hand and the minute hand pointing at 12 in the clock. Use Chimera Strand, it will increase the potency and the purity, Professor Lane instructed Michael, but it'll make the potion unstable. We could use Kelpie's hair. It's common, and doesn't smell like rotten eggs, Michael counter-argued with Professor Lane, which only a few had the guts and knowledge to do so. Michael had grown to like their exchange of knowledge. At first, Michael thought Professor Lane was just a 5-star alchemist and he had nothing new to teach him. However, he soon learned that he was completely wrong. Professor Lane was a 6-star alchemist. Only a few in Mazeroth knew this. Professor Lane was the reason for Michael to decide to stay in Mazeroth until graduation without leaving Aculon Realm. Knowledge was power and he was learning much more from Lane every day. Hearing his argument, Professor Lane approached the table with a bluish vial. He placed the vial on the table before him. That's why anyone with a brain should use a newt vial. It will make the potion stable, as usual. Professor Lane triumphed over Michael with his knowledge yet again. Everything he was learning from Lane was included in the next alchemy book the system recommended him to buy. The system required him to reach star level 6 if he wanted to absorb the knowledge from that book. Since he preferred not to spend 500,000 badass points on the Elven rune, he couldn't become a 6-star alchemist. Nonetheless, he was learning so much from Lane without spending a dime. Moreover, he was getting close to Lane, thus, making him another powerful ally. If he could make Lane his subordinate, he would have a powerful subordinate under him, even though Michael knew the odds of doing so were extremely slim. With a flick of his wrist, Lane took a crate of newt vials from his space ring. The crate materialized on the table. You can use them in the upcoming talent exhibition, Professor Lane reminded Michael of the Mazeroth version of the tournament. Fortunately, Michael didn't have to battle young masters but to show his skills in alchemy. Chapter 467 New Day, New Potion and New Weaponry. Hey man, how is it going? Man, can you teach me how to extract the pure essence from the alpha bush? Dude, you're a lifesaver, I did what you told me and it worked. Michael was bombarded by greetings, gratitudes, and questions the moment he came through the common room door. Contrary to his initial plan, now Michael was extremely popular among the students. He earned and multiplied his popularity by helping other students, not to make them better alchemists but to form alliances. The students were prohibited to share their identity in public while they were in the Aculon realm. However, they weren't prohibited from reuniting outside of the Aculon realm. Michael used this loophole to make friends. Every time one became his friend, Michael asked them to come to his gala at Hades. This way, they wouldn't have to share their identities immediately. When they attend the gala, Michael would introduce himself and form an alliance with them and their families. This way, his influence would spread not only to Azer but also to the most powerful continent of them all, R. I'm gonna get some shut-eye, see you guys later. Michael really yawned when he was talking to them. He was so tired after pulling all-nighters for 3 days in a row. Even the Dark Lord wanted some rest. Michael's room was empty. Usually, Elidor would visit him and talk to Michael about enhancing the drones and spiders and discuss their next big project. Opening the door, he was welcomed by a messy room. The empty vials were lying all around the floor, the apparatus setup was still smoking and letting out crimson-red puffs of smoke, and jars filled with creepy-looking items as well as eyeballs of all colors. Even the walls were plastered with posters that resemble blueprints and chemical equations. In addition to the apparatus set up on the table, there were also many nuts and bolts along with several blueprints. Home sweet home. Michael's legs gave up as he collapsed onto the bed. The next thing he remembered was nothing but darkness. Michael, you have to mix burning buttons and fever buxus. No, it won't give you the vivid experience you are hoping for. New novel _chap_ters are published here, Elworld. Calm, radiant aniseed. You still have to see how much you should put inside. Forget about aniseed. You still haven't managed to find the formula to the counter-agent. Without the counter-agent, you're practically giving your enemies an ultimate weapon to be used against you. Are you crazy? You haven't even figured out the right formula. How do you plan to come up with an antidote? All these voices were ringing in his voice and having a chat of their own. His mind was working at full capacity to create a new potion that would help him in the long run. Lord Lucifer, Lord. Geesh, I didn't think a god could sleep like this. Weird that usually he would hear his own voices argue with each other, but now he heard Ellider's voice. His eyes refused to open up. The system and the environmental scanning map would alert him if any intruders entered the room. That's how Michael figured out whether he was still dreaming or it was Ellider who entered the room. Either way, he wasn't going to wake up just yet. It seems like he still hasn't figured it out. Ellider sat on the chair, taking out several empty parchments from the drawer. He was scribbling on the parchments, trying to come up with perfect runes to enhance Lucifer's armor and their new project. What is this? Among the parchment, one parchment had gray and blue lines on it. He opened it up curiously to see what was inside. They had been discussing the design for weeks without being able to find the right one. He was surprised by what he saw, the design. Ellider realized Lucifer finally figured it out. The tubular-shaped device was fitted with 4 wheels, a complex wiring, numerous rings of copper inside the device and mini pipes attached to every single ring that could be seen on the parchment. Wow, he finished it. Ellider was more excited than he thought. When Michael said they were going to build a long-range mortar for old Bertha, Ellider deemed it a simple task. Then, they started to work on the design. That's when they realized that building a mortar that's capable of firing powerful mini torpedoes powered by arch energy absorbed from the Stormville crystals. Of course, they couldn't forget the ability of the torpedoes fired from mortar to track their target using heat signature. If they managed to build the mortar successfully, they could modify the cannons to adapt to the revolutionary technology. By that time, the cannonballs fired from the cannons would hit the target with 97% accuracy. Updated _ at Elworld. Thanks to Michael's recent upgrade to the 4-star inventor trait, he was able to build a mortar. The challenge was to integrate Ellider's runes, which would absorb the arch energy from the Stormville crystals and transfer the energy to the ammunition. Ellider had to come up with new runes to pinpoint other ships using the heat they radiate. Now that the design for the mortar has been done, it was his job to come up with the runes. You two are still on that? Ellider felt a chill running through his spine when he suddenly heard Gaia's voice. He quickly turned back to see her strolling into the room as she owned the room. She closed the door before Ellider could ask what the hell was she doing in their room. Then she walked straight to the bed. Aw, look at ma cutie pie. She sat on the bed beside her sleeping fiancé. She took his head onto her lap before gently combing his silky raven black hair. Shimmer dust, goes, with, Michael was mumbling in his sleep, isn't he cute? She was melted by his cuteness and couldn't help showering his face with kisses. Ellider was still in shock seeing her smooching with Michael in the middle of a day in a student's room. She was jeopardizing not only herself by being here but also the two of them. The troubled look on his face was visible through the dark lines on his forehead. Quit worrying, half-elf. In conducting a room-to-room search to ensure the rules are being followed, she chuckled while saying those words. Ellider sighed, thinking how much she was abusing her power to get what she wants and what they want. His frown soon turned to a peal of laughter. I have 15 minutes, she wrapped her hand around him to transfer the scented warmth from her. Ellider knew there was no point arguing with this woman, she was a wraith after all. While he was picking his brain to create entirely a new rune, Lucifer was getting kisses from a pretty girl and playful headbutts as though she was a lamb. Their relationship reminded him of the relationship between him and Gaia's ancestor Edwina Wraith. He would give anything to see her one more time. Nonetheless, it was heartwarming to see her descendant has found someone who truly loves her. The more Ellider spent time with Lucifer, the more he realized how wrong the Sky Hall was about him. He heard Lucifer's side of the story and realized that Sky Hall actually pushed him onto the path to become the Dark Lord. He had no choice. Even if he strayed away from his path and decided to live peacefully, they wouldn't let him. They would chase him to the end of the world. For more _novel, visit Elworld. Did he eat something? Gaia asked Ellider. How would I know? Ellider responded while drawing the new runes on the parchment. The sooner you two finish whatever you two are doing, the better. We might soon. Ellider turned back with the parchment containing the design for the new mortars. He finished the design of the new mortars. Ellidy handed over the parchment to Gaia as she stared at the design for a few moments, then a look of surprise emerged on her face. Her eyes widened. So they can really track the target shit and destroy it? Ellider nodded. Yes, I'm close to creating the required rune. The only catch is, we will need a huge amount of the crystals you showed me. A weapon like this wouldn't come so easily. So what Ellidy said wasn't a surprise for Gaia. Speaking of crystals, I need an update on the new mining machine we asked Caius to build. They now fully control the Stormville mountain and were mining the crystals in full force. Yet, the process was extremely slow and inefficient due to a lack of advanced mining tools. To solve this issue, Michael designed new hydraulic rock drillers and pulley systems. Caius was tasked with finding engineers and scholars to transform the blueprints into actual machines. Due to the sensitivity of the task, each and everyone who had been working on the project was given a pendant attached to the spider. The spiders were constantly watched by Azazel, and if anyone let out a word about the project, they would be immediately killed by the spider. Until now, no one dared to utter a word, partially due to the fact they were being paid in hundreds of thousands. The Southerners valued gold coins more than anything, so it was easy for Caius to keep them in line. Plus, Michael's business endeavors were extremely fruitful. He was earning millions through the Hades and Majestic. The pirate fleet under Corey and Maxine had been turned from pirates to sea guards. If a merchant ship carried valuable cargo, they could either pay 30% or be sent back to whatever they came from. On their way back, they might or might not be attacked by pirates and lose all the cargo, and these pirates may or may not be connected to Maxine. Almost 98% of the merchants chose to pay 30% rather than face the wrath of pirates. At first, the pirates were reluctant to change, but after tasting loot they got by without even raising a finger enticed them. Now they were happily working as border patrol officers and getting what they wanted by negotiating instead of battling. Full_out new episode on the L-World .com platform. So are you going to show any new runes in the talent exhibition or ignore it like him? Gaia asked as Ellider pondered about the upcoming talent exhibition for a few moments. I think the last thing we want is to make Skyhall stronger. Talent exhibitions do just that. Chapter 468 Live feed from Alpha Guardian's warship. You sleep well, human. I will see you later, said Gaia, gently placing a soft kiss on Michael's forehead. The 15 minutes flew by in a blink of an eye. She hated to leave him, yet she had no choice. When we are gonna leave this place? That was the question running in her mind for some time. Because of her job and his role as a student, they couldn't spend time with each other as they used to. 8 months were gone, and 10 months remained until he could graduate and leave this place for good. I love you, Michael said before she could stand up and leave. I love you too, she whispered into his ears. Then, she left the room, but not without ruffling his hair playfully. Almost 3 hours later, Michael opened his eyes. There was still exhaustion in his eyes. When he woke up, he noticed Ellider was attaching a parchment to the wall. Then, he assessed the system for a second to look at the time. It was 4:30. Fortunately, he had no classes for the day, so he had some free time to spare. How is it going? Michael rubbed his eyes to adjust his sensor to the light. You're awake, Ellider exclaimed as he continued to draw some symbols on the parchment in front of him. They had their curtains closed, so the room remained always gloomier and dark. Right at the moment, however, the room was getting brighter and brighter. In addition, there was also a low-pitched whistling sound emanating from the parchment. Michael's sleepiness quickly disappeared as he strolled toward Ellider. Alas, I finished it, Ellider proudly exclaimed, looking at the purple rune on the parchment. For Michael, the rune resembled the symbol of Gemini. Only the symbol before him was letting out a bright purple glow. This part can and will absorb the arch energy from the crystals and send it to the mortar. Ellider ran his finger on the crescent-shaped top part of the symbol. Then he moved his finger to the bottom of the symbol, the auto-targeting using heat signatures. This part is responsible for that. All we need now is to build the device and test it out on a target. He willed the system to take out a spy cam from the system's storage. The next second, the spider materialized on his palm. He pointed at the spider's eyes to the wall. Azazel, are you getting this? He connected his earpiece with Azazel, full_our current_novel on Elworld. Yes my lord. Should I give this recording to Master Jonah? Every time Michael wanted to transfer the blueprint from Aquilon to the outside world, he would use the spider to record the contents which could be seen and recorded by Azazel. The demon butler would hand over the recording to Jonah. He was responsible for drawing the blueprints on parchment and sending them to whoever Michael asked him to. Communication between him and Azazel remained undetected by Mazroth's security arrays. However, the system warned him that with its current level, it's unable to send items such as parchments, runes, and herbs from Mazroth to the outside world. Luckily for Michael, Jonah proved to be great at replicating blueprints. What are you going to do about the rune? He won't be able to copy this, asked Eladir. We need to wait until after the talent exhibition, Michael nonchalantly said. You mean the break? Yeah. At that time, we can get out of here and finish the mortar. While he was learning from Lane, Michael heard that the students will get a 1-month holiday. Of course, Lane seemed against the idea of giving the students a break. His exact words were they are already buffoons with acorn-sized brains. Breaks will only reduce the size of their brain further. Fortunately, Lane was not responsible for the holidays. It was up to Headmistress Kayla and she saw no reason not to give them a break. Michael planned to utilize this break to get out of Aquilon realm and see how things are outside. Lord Lucifer, Michael's train of thoughts was interrupted by Azazel's voice in his head. You should take a look at this live feed. Michael was able to sense the acute amusement in Azazel's voice. The demon butler rarely showed any feelings other than being calm and collected. Therefore, when Michael sensed the change in his voice, he was more than curious. He quickly waved his hand as a 36-inch dark mirror appeared before Eladir and him. The mirror hovered over to the wall and attached itself to the wall. Full_our current_novel on Elworld. The interior of the war room in Alpha Guardian's airship was rather simple. The circular room had one door on the east side, a large round stone table in the center, and above the stone table was a chandelier to light the table below. One could count 11 stone chairs around the table. At the moment, a golden-haired elf and 2 humans dressed in red metal armor with golden engravings occupied the chairs. The 2 soldiers looked pale. They almost looked as though they had just come out of the shower. They couldn't help sweating uncontrollably, mainly due to the fear of what was going to happen to them when the Alpha Guardian returned from the headquarters. The golden-haired elf was Tiriana, the best friend and the second in command to the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. The trio had no clue that another entity is in the room and transmitting everything they do and talking to the Dark Forest. The Battle of Hades concluded when the Alpha Guardians appeared with her soldiers. They took all the ninjas sent to attack everyone in the Hades. Michael wanted to kill many and take a few as prisoners so he could interrogate them to find out who sent them in the first place. His plan was rudely interrupted by the Alpha Guardians. Although he failed to take the ninjas prisoners, he left a spider on each of the survivors. The Alpha Guardian beamed up everyone to her warship. Without her knowing, the spiders infiltrated every corner of the warship and sent Azazel a live feed ever since. What do you mean you lost them? Tiriana slammed the stone table in anger. My lady, we found this in the safe house. The soldier who had a tall stature, silver hair, and blue eyes placed a metal card on the table. He then rotated the table as the card reached Tiriana. Her vengeful eyes finally moved from the soldiers to the black card in front of her. She took the card. It didn't feel heavy or anything. There was nothing on the card except the letter D was embossed in crimson red. The card immediately reminded her of Lucifer, but then, he always used the letter L, not D. Still, she couldn't dismiss the troubling thought that Lucifer may have captured someone far more important to them. Magnir, Tyria cast a spell as a bright light enveloped the card. The light then slowly hovered over to the air above the table, forming the enhanced image of the card. The image took the form of a holograph. The 2 soldiers stared at the card while Tiriana pointed her finger at the card, drawing a few symbols in the air. As soon as she stopped drawing the symbols in the air, a red smudge that resembled a fingerprint appeared on the card. just beside the letter D, that's blood. Tiriana's brows creased, but we didn't see any signs of battle or blood stains in the safe house. The other soldier who wore the same armor but had golden hair and an oval face responded to Tiriana's words with a mix of shock, doubt, and confusion. Were you able to locate the handler or any of the team members' orb? Tyrion asked while still looking at the blood smudge on the card. We tried but to no avail, my lady. All of their communications orbs are offline, the silver-haired soldier answered. Following his answer, Tyria continued to draw some symbols in the air. Unlike before, nothing changed. Updated _ at Elworld. This is serious. We must find her. The anger in her eyes was replaced by concern. I need everything you have on her target on my table within the next hour, got it? The soldiers stomped the ground, saluting her. Yes, my lady. They left the room leaving the sound of heavy thuds and Tiriana. For the next hour, she analyzed the card using every rune and spell she had in her arsenal. Yet, she found nothing. No clue, no hint, no marks of any kind to locate whoever left the card. I have to tell Tanulia, she mumbled under her breath. Tanulia was known to Michael as the Alpha Guardian elf who he met in Hades. Azazel had never seen Tanulia in the warship after she brought the ninjas. According to the Guardians he eavesdropped on, Tanulia left for the Guardian Guild headquarters in Aur for some important meeting with the other Alpha Guardians. An hour later, the two soldiers came into the room carrying a small crate containing numerous parchments. This is all the information about the Operation Desert Eagle, my lady. The silver-haired soldier placed the crate on the table, took the parchment out of it one by one, placed it on the table, and rotated the table once again. Leave, Tyrion uttered an order. Usually, her voice would have sounded gentle and melodious. Now, however, it sounded stern and intimidating. Yes, my lady. The soldiers lingered no longer as they quickly rushed out of the room before they suffered the wrath of Tiriana. After the soldiers left the room, she opened the parchments one by one. Magnir, every time she opened a parchment, she cast the spell. Then, the bright light enveloped the parchment before forming an enlarged holographic image of the parchment in the air above the table. Each holographic image hovering in the air contained a drawing of either a man or a woman. Michael, who was witnessing the scene through the spider, immediately recognized not one but two, new_chap_ters or pub_list on Elworld. That's Peyton. He saw Peyton in the mirror before him. Then he noticed another familiar face. Although she too had blonde hair like Peyton, she was far more prettier than Peyton, Sabrina Winston. Chapter 469 Vampires. Michael was flabbergasted to see Sabrina on the missing person list. Several questions such as what was she doing with Guardians? What was their mission? Where is Noah? Where did they go? Appeared in his mind. Looking at the change in his face, Elidor asked, You know her? Michael nodded. That my friend is, the future Supreme Guardian's little sister. Elidor was visibly surprised. He didn't think Lucifer would know who the next Supreme Guardian is. As though Michael guessed his next question, he smiled at Elidor. Killing Noah is out of the question, Elidor. That old smoke made sure that never happens. At least it will not happen until I get stronger. By stronger, he meant upgrading the system. To upgrade the system to version 5.0, he needed a whopping amount of 600,000 badass points. The system required him not to act against Noah at least until he upgraded the system to version 8.0. He really wondered what the hell Andreas did for the system to be so careful and cautious. Which one? Andreas MacLeod? Elidor asked as Michael nodded. Do you know him? Michael turned his gaze away from Sabrina's face to Elidor. He felt curious and wanted to know about the famous Supreme Guardian Andreas MacLeod. Never met him. But I heard he was a real hard ass and a prodigy. So this Noah person, how much does he know about you? Elidor rubbed his chin. Not much. I saved his family once or twice. He definitely has no idea about my identity. If he does, the entire guild would be at my doorstep the next moment. Michael chuckled. They saw Tiriana scroll through every single parchment on the table. Michael counted 11 missing people including Sabrina and Peyton. Several minutes later, Tiriana waved her hand as another holographic image containing a man's face and details such as name, cultivation level and threat level appeared above the table. Visit Elworld. Com for a better reading experience. Victor. Michael saw the face of a short brown-haired man with a muscular build. He had a great memory. Hence, he recognized the man. Almost 16 months ago, he met the man when he visited Phoenix Island for the auction. He was one of the core strengthening stage warriors who received special treatment from Lord Julius. After offending Julius by killing Maria, Michael used teleportation to escape with Gaia. Before activating the scroll, he left a note in Victor's pocket with the help of the system. Michael asked Victor to meet him on the note, except, to this date, Michael never saw Victor again until now. Under Victor's image, he saw the word high threat level and became surprised. Victor seemed to have managed to reach core strengthening stage level 6 from level 4. His threat level was higher than Michael imagined. As he was staring at the images, another row of information appeared beside Victor. Last seen. Michael received another surprise. According to the holographic image, Victor was last seen traveling to the southern continent. The plot thickens. Michael frowned. Tiriana was collecting every bit of information she could about Operation Desert Eagle. Everyone, including the leader of the operation and the help brought from the outside, had gone missing. While rummaging through the parchment, Tiriana heard the door suddenly open. She almost jumped back in sudden shock. Her heart calmed down when she saw her best friend and the Alpha Guardian, Tanulia Valran, enter the war room. Tanulia, instead of addressing her as Alpha Guardian like the rest of the Guardians, Tiriana called her by the name, stood up, and hugged her tight. I heard about what happened. It's not your fault, let's find them. Tanulia patted Tiriana on the back. Everything said and done, the motherly expression on Tanulia's face disappeared. Instead, a stern, dominant, pissed-off look replaced the previous expression. What do we know about the target? Tanulia used her dominant Alpha Guardian voice. Victor Hagen, last known cultivation stage core strengthening level 6, last seen traveling to the southern continent in a merchant ship. Tanulia listed the basic information about Victor. 15 months ago, several young men had started to disappear in the outskirt villages of Draddle and Kethen. A few weeks after the disappearance, their bodies were found, mutilated, and Tiriana paused for a moment, and completely drained of blood in the forests surrounding the villages. The number of disappearances increased, and every time, a week after, the bodies turned out to be as same as before, mutilated and drained of blood. Any similarities among the victims? Asked Tanulia. There is only one, the bite mark. Every single victim had a bite mark on their lower neck. Vampires? Michael was taken aback by surprise. What she said matched the description of vampire killings. However, he didn't know this world had vampires. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here at Elworld. This matter was brought to the Guild's attention by Kethen's king, Porter Forbes. Through a thorough investigation conducted by Guardian Captain Gerard Atkins and his team, they found clues connecting Victor to the victims. They sent a team of Guardians, but they were all killed. Tiriana paused for a moment and continued. They were all killed in the same manner, mutilated, completely drained of blood, and all of them had bite marks. Tanulia listened to Tiriana, showing no visible expression on her face. However, she was raging inside after hearing that Victor killed the Guardians. Regardless of their race, they were Guardians. Killing a Guardian was a crime punishable by death, and if one was to commit this crime, the Hunter Guardians would hunt him or her to the end of the world. Because of the threat level, Guardian Captain Gerard initiated Operation Desert Eagle and assigned Peyton as the leader of this operation. Michael curiously waited for the part where Sabrina got involved in this. She was supposed to be studying at Holy Trident Academy. There was no reason for Sabrina to mingle with the Guardians except for her brother. However, something told Michael that Noah wasn't involved in this. If he did, Sabrina would have gone missing. Peyton recruited these Guardians and, with a flick of her wrist, Tiriana brought the images of 10 Guardians before Tanulia. She then hesitated for a second. Noticing the reluctance shown by Tiriana, Tanulia creased her brows. What is it, Tiri? The last member she recruited, is Sabrina. Tiriana waved her hand as Sabrina's image appeared directly in front of Tanilia. Sabrina Winston, Noah's little sister. As soon as Tiriana spoke these words, Tanilia's composure completely changed. She slammed the stone table as the images started to flicker. What? Tanilia's roar echoed through the war room. What the fuck was she thinking? Tanilia's creamy white skin turned red along with her eyes, which now looked as red as fire. She recruited someone who's not even a guardian. She slammed the stone table once again. Seeing Tanilia's outburst, Tiriana took a step back. Her legs were uncontrollably shaking because she had never seen Tanilia this furious before. That bitch is expendable. But not her. Tanilia pointed at Sabrina. If we are to lose Sabrina and Noah found out that his little sister died because of us, everything will be ruined. Michael confirmed his suspicion. Noah indeed had no idea about his sister's disappearance. What's up with that girl in trouble? Michael shook his head disappointedly. Despite his feud with Noah and the Supreme Guardian, Michael had a good impression on everyone in his family. Diana and Ethan always treated him like another son. Imelda and Natalia was cool too, but now after the tournament, Michael had a feeling that they might not treat him as they used to. Despite Michael nearly beating Andrews to death, Sabrina acted as though she was his little sister in front of him. Michael too liked Sabrina. Visit Elworld. com for the best no_vel_read_ng experience regardless. Now it seemed as Sabrina Winston got herself into trouble yet again. This time Michael would not be there to save her, but if only Michael knew she was his little sister. We have to find her no matter what. Immediately contact every single guardian in the southern continent. I'm authorizing Code Red. Use all and any resources. I need Sabrina found ASAP. I will contact the other alphas. Unfortunately, Tanilia took out some kind of orb and the next moment, she was beamed out from the warship to somewhere else. So Michael was unable to follow Tanilia. After Tanilia left the war room, Tiriana contacted the Guardians on the southern continent using several orbs. Her meeting with the Guardians took almost an hour. Only then, Tanilia appeared in the room once again with a golden parchment in her hand. Here, Tanilia threw the parchment to Tiriana as she cast the spell to enhance the continents. Magnier, just like before, the spell formed a light layer around the parchment before forming a holographic image of the contents above the table. The holographic image contained a black panther standing on its two legs like a human. The black panther had shiny fur, arms like humans', and wore a golden chain around its neck. Send men to bring him to me, Tanilia ordered Tiriana. Although Tiriana had no idea who this beast man was, she had a feeling that this beast man might be the only one who could find Sabrina. On the other hand, Michael had a vague feeling that he met this black panther somewhere else before. Alpha Guardian. Who is this beast man? Tiriana noticed the change in Tanilia's voice and deemed she was less furious than before, so she asked the question that nagging her brain. I had to call in a favor from Alpha Guardian Qasim to get his help. This beast man is the best hunter in this world. Hearing Tanilia, Michael began to connect the dots. He almost made the connection, and if he was right, he didn't meet the Black Panther, but he may have met someone related to the Black Panther. How much are we paying him? Hunters don't come cheap, Tiriana asked, only to see Tanilia shake her head. Not a single coin. He doesn't want any coins, he wants a favor from me. When the time comes, I have to help him kill someone. Tyrion was stunned. She tried to change Tanilia's mind about helping the panther and killing someone. I gave my word. When the time comes, I will help him take a life dictator with a badass system. Hunter. Loading. Adjacent universe to HBS. You can find the rest of this content on the Elworld. com platform. Chapter 470. Logan, why do I have a feeling that Panther's target might be you, Lord Lucifer? Asked Elidar after Tanilia and Tiriana left the war room. Because I killed who may have been his relative or a friend. The images of a Bengal tiger beast man flashed across Michael's mind. Jacoby sealed his fate by trying to capture Gaia, and he would have accomplished that if it wasn't for Michael's timely intervention. We have a bigger problem now. Michael quickly cornered all his other thoughts in case the threat was as bad as he thought. He would have a crisis on his hand. It was not like Michael liked to play goody two-shoes, but if Victor was a vampire and he was in the southern continent, he might start feeling on the southerners. The southern continent was Michael's stronghold where he wielded absolute power. Michael would let nothing happen to that stronghold until he built an army on the southern continent to conquer everyone and everything in this world. Only by doing this, he could fight off the great clans. Hey Ellider, have you ever heard of vampires? Michael almost scoffed. 2 years ago, he would have laughed at the thought of vampires existing. He couldn't do that now because he was transmigrated to another world with the system. As far as he was concerned, anything was possible in this world. No, Ellider simply dismissed Michael's suspicion. However, Michael wasn't completely satisfied. There must be a whole lot of things that even Ellider, a few thousand-year-old ancient being, didn't know about. Azazel, Michael established a connection with his demon butler. My lord, the butler responded in his utter obedient voice. Contact everyone in the southern continent and order them to raise the security level. The villages in the outskirts must be guarded, no more reducing the strangers on the seas. They are to report to me immediately if they find anyone suspicious. While issuing orders to Azazel, he remembered something about vampires. Be on the lookout for anyone wear dark clothes to avoid sunlight, as you wish. My lord, after everything was said and done, Michael began his usual routine, trying to figure out the correct formula for his new potion. Even the system had no recipe for that. He was creating entirely a new potion, mixing alchemy and technology. The village of Rackdale was surrounded by lofty mountains and lush green fields. The hills were a beauty of their own, nature's beauty. Except for the name of the village, the people didn't change at all. From the time the village was founded, they grew vegetables, fruits, and other crops such as wheat, rice, and barley to support their lives. Twice a year, the crops would mature, and at that time, the village would look as though golden sheets blanketed it. Rackdale had a very little population. Most of them were farmers and the rest of them traveled with the merchants to Krilta, one of the towns in Giselle, and sold their harvest in the city to earn better. Updated _ at Elworld. They were simple people. They eat what they grew, they wear simple clothes, and most of all, they loved each other and always stood by each other in their time of distress. There was a strong bonding between every person in the village. They were definitely not rich but very kind-hearted. Today the village was muddy, containing several puddles of water and countless footmarks due to the heavy fall last night. Currently, the sun was setting behind the lush green mountains, painting the village in a mild orangey-red tint. There was always an apple tree in the village for a tired villager to sit under and relax. On the outside, the simple beauty of the village had a soothing effect on the eyes. The evening was their time to relax with their families and take well-deserved rest. However, at this moment, rest was the farthest thing from them. We need to find my husband. My son has gone missing for 3 days. I have 5 goats missing from my farm. The village didn't have many big buildings. Most of the farmer houses were simple, built with brown woods found in the nearby forest and roofed using silver slabs sold for cheap in Krilta. Except for one building, none of them could hold more than 4 people, and that building was the village leader's house. At the moment, inside a hall lit with torches, the villagers were hollering at a 7-feet hulking man. He had medium-length brown hair, brown eyes, and a goatee. The man may have looked terrifying due to his hulking body and the man-sized warhammer he was carrying on his back. He was listening to the pissed-off villagers patiently. Boom! The sound of thunderclaps in the distance indicated the approaching heavy downpour. It was ominous. Logan, we have to put together a party and search for them. An old man with a long beard walked out from the angry, worried mob of villagers. Yeah, you were a mercenary before everything. You can come out of retirement and help us, Logan, a woman with puffy red eyes shouted from the crowd. Their words immediately brought down some of the memories Logan desperately wanted to forget. The images of his last job flashed across his mind. The gloomy crypt, the swarming undead, the dead bodies of his group, and the man who killed everyone. Ever since that day, Logan wondered why he left him alive. No. Logan's sudden thunderous roar instantly killed the commotion in the hall. The villagers shuddered as all their faces went pale. They had never seen Logan lose his calm ever. Reeling what his outburst did, Logan took a deep breath, calming himself down. tomorrow we will go to Freedom Town and request King Tiberius help." Just before the people could react to his words, a teenage boy slammed the door open. The boy was running towards Logan, completely soaked wet. His face and leather armor was smudged with mud. Visit Elworld. Com, for the best no_vel_read_ng experience, Captain Rogers. The youngster mumbled. Then some of the citizens saw it. The youngster was bleeding and they saw a dagger sticking through the youngster's back. "Dewey, he's bleeding," the villagers mumbled as the youngster stumbled down. Logan immediately caught him before the youngster could hit the floor. He then gently placed the youngster down. "Dewey, what happened? Where are Captain Rogers and the rest of your team?" While questioning the young man, Logan looked at the old man, telling him wordlessly to go and bring the village healer quickly. "Found Georgie, dead, something, cough, cough," the youngster coughed up blood. Logan gently grabbed the dagger sticking out of his back. The dagger was deep into the youngster's spine. Logan could feel it. He had enough life experience to tell that this youngster was on the verge of death, and Sue embraced the darkness. Nonetheless, Logan wanted to lessen his suffering as well as get as much information as he could. Everyone, blood, Dream, cough, cough. Logan and the surrounding people could barely make sense of the mumbling coming out of his mouth. "Cough, killed, cough," the youngster began to cough up blood more and more. "It's gonna be alright, Dewey, you're gonna be alright. The healer will fix you right up." Logan smiled at the youngster, trying to make him calm down. He was a big man with a big heart, so he wanted to send the young man as painlessly as possible. "My son." All of a sudden a woman completely soaked in rainwater rushed into the room. She pushed aside everyone who stood in her way. When she saw Dewey lying on Logan's lap, bleeding and fighting for his life, she collapsed to the ground. For some reason, Logan couldn't look the woman in her eyes. He blamed himself. It felt as if he did something sooner, Dewey wouldn't have been like this. "Dewey!" The mother shouted, "What happened to you?" "No. Oh my God. Someone help me," her sickening cry echoed through the hall. "He said they found Georgie," another woman screamed from the crowd. "Yes. New_chap_ters or pub_list on Elworld. Com, we have to do something and do something now, yes." The crowd began to roar. Logan, however, didn't hear anything but the cries of a mother who is going to lose her son soon. He couldn't even imagine what she was going through. If he was to lose his wife Tessa, he would break into a million pieces. She was the only thing that kept him together and gave him a new life after the traumatic events he experienced on the undead island. Every day he had nightmares. It took everything in him to fight through the nightmares and overcome the traumatic experiences. He promised himself that he would leave the mercenary life behind. However, seeing Dewey's mother, Logan decided to take on a task one last time. "Gary, put together a team. I'm going to find Georgie and everyone." Logan stood up with a resolution in his eyes to find the disappeared villagers. Until now, 20 people in the village had mysteriously disappeared, including 3 children and 2 young girls. At first, they thought they left the village, then, they thought those villagers were lost in the forest. Only when the team sent into the forest disappeared too, did they realize that something was wrong. Of course, if Logan didn't leave for Gisel to get some financial help from the Senate, he would have sent for a search party sooner. It took the temporary village leader 2 weeks to realize those people were actually missing. Logan left the hall and entered his room, where he saw his wife peacefully sleeping on the bed. Her pail was illuminated in the candlelight on the stool beside the bed. Other than the bed and his wife, there was only an oak wardrobe and several roses in mud pots. He walked toward his wife. When he reached her bed, he moved aside her red hair and gently kissed her on the forehead. "Sleep well, Tessa. I will come back to you as soon as possible. It's time I find these people." She slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were tired as her skin was so pale. Looking at Logan, Tessa blacked, but her eye movement seemed restricted. "I will take care of myself, Tess. Don't worry." Logan closed her eyes gently before placing another kiss on her forehead. Turning back, he walked towards the wardrobe, not to wear any new clothes but to take something he shouldn't. He was welcomed by several brown robes and skits neatly stacked as he opened the wardrobe. He opened one of the drawers where there was another set of brown robes. He lifted the stacked robes to see the empty bottom. Only he knew that it was a false bottom and lifted up the false bottom, revealing a black card and a spider-shaped pendant lying there. Am I going to regret this? He asked himself, thinking about what he was going to do. Logan is one of the team member who went with Ross to the Undead Island. Refer chapter 237 if you don't remember him. ****This _ content is taken from Elworld. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.